In 1979, at 18, orphaned and alone, I journeyed north to seek refuge with my fiancé, Gu Sinan. In the courtyard, Gu Sinan, clad in his military uniform, eyed my rustic attire. He turned to his beloved and said, "This is the young maid my parents hired from our hometown. In my past life, I produced our engagement token," exposing Gu Sinan's lie on the spot. Humiliated and enraged, the white moonlight left and married Gu Sinan's sworn rival, only to be tormented to death by him. Gu Sinan married me, and tormented me for a lifetime. I was pregnant 7 times, and miscarried 7 times. It wasn't until the doctor declared that I had permanently lost the ability to bear children, only then did Gu Sinan clutch my neck, sneering that I had killed his white moonlight and was unworthy of bearing his child. Upon learning the truth, I plunged the scalpel into Gu Sinan in despair before leaping from the 18th floor. When I opened my eyes again, I heard Gu Sinan telling his beloved, "This is the young housekeeper my parents hired from our hometown." Suppressing the bitterness in my heart, I nodded in acknowledgement. "Yes, I'm the housekeeper the Gu family hired, Gu Sinan. In this lifetime, we are through for good. I found out Gu Sinan mistook me for the family's hired nanny." Commander Gu slapped his son hard across the face. "Outrageous. Go out there and clear this up immediately. Su Yi is your betrothed fiancé. How could you call her a hired housemaid? How am I supposed to face Su Yi's parents after what you've done?" Back when General Gu and his wife were sent to labor reform on the farm, they nearly starved to death. It was my parents who secretly brought them food for 3 years, saving both their lives. After his political rehabilitation, Commander Gu insisted on arranging an engagement between me and Gu Sinan, despite my parents' objections. Later, Commander Gu and Aunt Yuan returned to the city, and our families gradually lost touch. In my previous life, I was determined to fulfill my parents' dying wish by marrying Gu Sinan, but Gu Sinan never loved me. 1. He even went so far as to request a transfer to the remote southwest just to avoid me, returning home only 3 times in 10 years. Aunt Yuan, who never got to see her son, resented me for driving away her only child. Commander Gu's gaze toward me gradually filled with disappointment. Swallowing my pride, I applied to the army to become a military dependent. To avoid me, Gu Sinan volunteered for the front lines again, narrowly escaping death in a harrowing ordeal. For her son's sake, Aunt Yuan tearfully begged General Gu to forcibly bring me back to the compound, away from Gu Sinan. In that cold, unwelcoming compound, I endured endless ridicule and scorn, wasting half my life without a single day of happiness. When I opened my eyes again, I saw Gu Sinan carefully holding his beloved, as if afraid she might suffer the slightest grievance. It suddenly dawned on me that a forced marriage is doomed to misery. Gu Sinan, in this lifetime, I'm letting you go, and setting myself free too. This life finds me newly arrived at the military family compound. Aunt Yuan doesn't hold any grudge against me, and General Gu is quite fond of me too. Only Gu Sinan, just like in my previous life, vehemently objected to this marriage arrangement. Bailan and I are deeply in love. I absolutely refuse to accept an arranged marriage. You're the ones who owe Su Ye's parents a debt of gratitude. Why should I sacrifice my happiness to repay it for you? Commander Gu was so furious he was about to whip him with his belt. I stood in front of Gu Sinan and stopped the belt that was about to come down. "Uncle Gu, I came here this time just to find a job as a nanny, to earn a living and support myself. I've never met your son, and I never intended to marry him. Let's call off the engagement between our families." As I spoke, I took out the betrothal token from Aunt Yuan, a crystal-carved wild goose, and held it out to Gu Sinan. "Brother Gu, I've heard that wild geese symbolize loyalty and devotion. Please take this crystal goose back and give it to the girl you truly love." Gu Sinan never expected me to take the initiative to call off our engagement. While he felt a wave of relief, there was also a flicker of irritation. He studied me intently. "You really don't want to marry me, you'd rather just be the housekeeper?" I nodded, my gaze steady and filled with the resentment from my past life, and said to him, "Gu Sinan, I truly have no feelings for you, nor any intention of marrying you." Gu Sinan's expression darkened instantly, clutching the crystal wild goose so tightly his knuckles turned white. He let out a bitter laugh through gritted teeth. "Fine, you'd better remember every word you said today. Don't you dare entertain any improper thoughts about me." I settled into the Gu residence. As a country girl working as a housemaid, Commander Gu and Aunt Yuan felt terribly guilty and offered to find me a respectable job. I shook my head and refused. "I'm just a simple country girl. Besides washing and cooking, I don't know how to do anything else. Right now, I don't have a single penny to my name. The travel expenses to come find Gusinan were scraped together penny by the folks back in my hometown. I need to earn money first to pay back the travel funds the villagers lent me. Seeing how determined I was to work as a nanny, Commander Gu and Auntie Yuan had no choice but to reluctantly agree. Stepping into the Gu family's kitchen again, my body moved as if guided by muscle memory. The sweet and sour pork ribs and winter melon meatball soup I made completely astonished General Gu and Aunt Yuan. Su Yi, I never knew you were such an amazing cook. I smiled wryly to myself. Of course I am. In my past life, I spent 40 years in this very house waiting on your entire family. I know my family's favorite dishes better than any housekeeper could. I shamelessly camped out at the back entrance of a state-run restaurant for a month just because Commander Gu loved sweet and sour pork ribs. That's how I finally got the chef to relent and teach me his signature recipe. 2. For Aunt Yuan's favorite winter melon meatball soup, I burned my hands countless times until they were covered in blisters. Finally perfected the meatball soup, crystal clear broth with tender melt-in-your-mouth meatballs. Gusinan picked up a few strands of his favorite stewed dried tofu shreds and let out a cold laugh. Stop with your little schemes. Did you really think learning to cook a few dishes our parents like would qualify you to marry into the Gu family? General Gu slammed the table hard. Eat it or get out. Gusinan threw his chopsticks on the table, grabbed his coat, and stormed out. Once again, the father and son parted on bad terms. I fought back tears, wishing I could bury my head in the bowl. I curse being reborn into this powerless stage of life, completely alone in this world, with no place to call home. Even the referral letter from my production brigade has expired. If I hadn't shamelessly clung to the Gu household, I'd probably have become a vagrant and been sent back to my hometown. Right, just wait a little longer. Once I've saved enough money, I can leave the Gu family, or find another household to work as a nanny. That's how you get the temporary residence permit sorted. I want to put down roots in this city. I want to go to school, in this lifetime. I also want to be someone who contributes to society, through my deliberate avoidance. Gusinan and I lived under the same roof, yet we went a surprisingly long time without seeing each other. While he was at work, I would clean the house, do the laundry, and cook. By the time he got home, I had already eaten in the kitchen and retreated to the maid's room to read. Soon enough, I received my first month's paycheck. Aunt Yuan gave me 20 yuan. I took out 15 yuan and sent it back to my hometown, asking the village chief to return it to the folks on my behalf. With the remaining 5 yuan, I decided to go to the supply and marketing cooperative to buy some pencils, erasers, and notebooks. Little did I expect to run into Gusinan and his cherished first love, Jiang Bailan, right there. Seeing me following them, Gusinan's face flushed with anger as he shouted, Su Yi, have you no shame? I've told you already. I will never accept an arranged marriage set up by our elders, even if you follow me to the ends of the earth. I would never marry a country bumpkin like you. A ripple of mocking laughter spread through the crowd. My cheeks burned with embarrassment as I blurted out an explanation. I wasn't following you. I came here to buy pencils. Jiang Bailan tugged at Gusinan's sleeve. Sinan, we might have misjudged Sui. Perhaps she really did come to buy pencils. Gusinan sneered. What could an illiterate woman who never even finished elementary school possibly need pencils for? Bailan, you're too naive. You have no idea what some women would do just to secure their place in the city. I lifted my head, stared directly at Gusinan, and mustered the courage to retort. If I truly wanted to stay in the city, I would never have called off our engagement. 3. At my words, the crowd erupted in an uproar. What? This girl is actually Battalion Commander Gu's fiancée. Then who's the girl holding Battalion Commander Gu's hand next to him? I assented. Obvious, that's his mistress. Jiang Bailan's face went pale. She desperately broke free from Gusinan's grasp and ran off in tears. Gusinan's face turned livid, glaring at me with a murderous expression. Su Yi, if anything happens to Bailan, I'll make you pay with your life. With that, he pushed through the crowd and ran after Jiang Bailan. I cast an indifferent glance at his resolute retreating figure. Turning around, I entered the supply and marketing cooperative to buy the paper, pens, and ink I needed. Back home, I took out my fountain pen and ink, ready to practice calligraphy. Suddenly, the door to the maid's room was kicked open from the outside. Gusinan stormed in with a face like thunder, snatched the ink bottle from the desk, and smashed it violently on the floor. Shards of glass flew everywhere, leaving several bleeding cuts on my calves. The pain brought tears to my eyes. Seeing me injured, Gusinan paused mid-action, as if struck by a thought, then let out another cold sneer. First you go around spreading vicious rumors to ruin Bailan's reputation, and now you're putting on this pitiful act for me, Su Yi. I've truly underestimated the tricks you're capable of as a mere nanny. Through gritted teeth, I defended myself. I never spread rumors or intended to tarnish Miss Zhang's reputation. Gu Xinan completely ignored my explanations, his face cold as he grabbed my arm and dragged me outside. Now everyone out there is saying that Bailan is the homewrecker who ruined our engagement. Bailan is being driven to her grave by all these vicious rumors. Go, you need to explain to everyone right now that ours was an arranged marriage, and the engagement was called off long ago. With my legs still bleeding profusely, Gu Xinan forcibly dragged me to the cultural troupe. Jiang Bailan's eyes were red from crying. The moment she saw Gu Xinan, she threw herself into his arms with a loud sob. Gu Xinan instinctively pushed me away, sending me stumbling backward until I fell into a pair of cold, waiting arms. Liang Jikai, I stared blankly at the man holding me. In my past life, because I insisted on marrying Gu Xinan, to get back at him, Jiang Bailan married Gu Xinan's sworn rival. That man was none other than Liang Jikai, who now stood before her. The Gu and Liang families were of equal social standing. Gu Xinan and Liang Jikai had been at odds since childhood. Later, I heard that after Liang Jikai married Jiang Bailan, he subjected her to constant torment and abuse. Unable to endure the humiliation, Jiang Bailan drowned herself in the river. I had no intention of getting involved in the romantic entanglements of those privileged compound kids. I stood up, walked into the center of the crowd, met Gu Xinan's threatening gaze, and declared loudly, I was indeed engaged to Gu Xinan, but the engagement has been called off. Gu Xinan and Jiang Bailan are in a legitimate relationship. There's no affair going on. I'm not Gu Xinan's fiancé, just the family's housekeeper. With that, I pushed through the crowd and hurried toward the clinic. Gu Xinan's expression softened slightly, his gaze fell on my bleeding leg, and a hint of guilt flickered in his eyes. Su Yi, wait, I'll drive you to the clinic. Jiang Bailan suddenly let out a cry and fainted into Gu Xinan's arms. After a moment's hesitation, Gu Xinan scooped Jiang Bailan up in his arms. He turned his head and said to me, wait here for me. I'll take Bailan back to the dorm first, then come back to take you to the clinic. With that, he hurried off, carrying Jiang Bailan in his arms. I stared blankly at his retreating figure for a while. I secretly envied Jiang Bailan. Such unwavering devotion is something I've never experienced in 2 lifetimes. I didn't wait there any longer, dragging my numb, aching legs. I turned and headed toward the clinic. Suddenly, a pair of large hands wrapped around my waist. I gasped as I was swept off my feet in one swift motion. Liang Jikai's teasing voice reached my ears. You're bleeding out and still putting on a tough act. No wonder you can't outmaneuver Jiang Bailan. You're as stubborn as a mule. Come on, I'll drive you to the clinic. And just like that, Liang Jikai scooped me up in his arms. He carried me from the cultural troupe to the clinic. Then from the clinic to the residential compound. When Commander Gu saw my legs covered in bruises, he flew into a rage. Aunt Yuan also wore a dark expression, making her displeasure with Jiang Bailan clear. Gu Xinan couldn't find me at the entrance of the cultural troupe and rushed home in a hurry. The moment he stepped inside, General Gu kicked him squarely. Su Yi has already agreed to call off the engagement. And you still have to bully her. Apologize. Perhaps realizing he was in the wrong, Gu Xinan came up to me and muttered a quiet apology. Then, with a furrowed brow, he asked why I hadn't waited for him at the entrance. I looked up and replied coldly with 3 words, it hurt too much. A flicker of guilt crossed Gu Xinan's handsome face before he launched into another relentless lecture. You're partly to blame for this too. If you had explained things clearly earlier at the supply and marketing co-op entrance, Bailan wouldn't have been so wronged. Here's what we'll do, I'll bring Bailan over for dinner tomorrow, make a few of your signature dishes, then apologize to Bailan face to face, and we can consider this matter water under the bridge. I let out a bitter laugh and pointed at my bandaged legs. Sorry. The doctor said my leg injury is quite serious and I need to stay in bed for a few days. 4. I'm afraid I won't be able to cook for you all tomorrow. Gu Xinan's face flushed with embarrassment as he spoke with an awkward expression. Let's do it another day then. I'll bring Bailan over for dinner after your leg has healed. Not even in a few days. I cut him off mid-sentence. Gu Xinan's face darkened. Su Yi, I told you, calling off our engagement has nothing to do with Bailan. Must you always target her? I looked up, staring blankly at the man. So this is how he's always seen me, both in this life and the last. as someone so despicable, petty, and scheming. She always bullied his beloved white moonlight, hiding behind their engagement. I let out a bitter laugh and said to him with feigned nonchalance, I'm not targeting her. I just wanted to say that in a few days, I won't be here anymore. Probably won't have the chance to cook for you all again. Gusinan froze for a moment. Then suddenly asked with urgency, not here, where are you going? With both your parents gone, what would going back to your hometown even what? Leave you with no one to rely on, waiting to be taken advantage of by those ill-intentioned relatives back home. I shook my head and said word by word, I'm not going back to my hometown. I've thought it over. Since we've called off the engagement, it's not appropriate for me to keep living with your family. I found a family to work for as a nanny once my leg heals. I probably won't be coming to your place again. Perhaps my tone was too final, even a flicker of hurt crossed Gusinan's face. He said awkwardly, if you don't want to apologize, forget it. At most, I just won't bring Bailan home for meals. You're all alone here in an unfamiliar place. If you go work as a housemaid and someone takes advantage of you, what will you do then? Maybe it's better to stay home, if you're worried about people misunderstanding. I can transfer to the southwest region with Bailan. My heart skipped a beat. And I instinctively turned to look at Aunt Yuan. Sure enough, upon hearing that her son had voluntarily requested a transfer to the remote southwest just to avoid me, Aunt Yuan's smile was barely holding up. A wave of bitterness washed over her heart. Gusinan, in this lifetime, you don't have to deliberately avoid me anymore. I won't come again to ruin your love, or your happy family. Just then, Liang Jikai suddenly walked in. Su Yi, your room is ready, let me carry you there now. Gusinan looked at him in surprise, then at me, his face turning pale then red. After a long pause, he suddenly let out a cold laugh. So that's why you're leaving so suddenly. You've found yourself a better prospect. Su Yi, I've clearly underestimated you. To stay in the city, you'd even get involved with someone like Liang Jikai. I froze for a moment, and when the meaning of his words sank in, my face instantly flushed crimson. Liang Jikai snapped to his senses and lunged forward to strike him. I grabbed the back of his shirt from behind, holding on tight. Mr. Liang, let it go. I didn't want to stay at the Gu residence any longer. Liang Jikai shot Gusinan a venomous glare. He scooped me up from the bed. Suddenly, Gusinan grabbed my arm. Let her go. Gusinan glared at us with fury in his eyes, as if he'd been betrayed. Liang Jikai sneered. On what grounds? Gusinan retorted angrily. On the grounds that we were once betrothed. Liang Jikai scoffed. You said it yourself, once betrothed. Wasn't that engagement called off long ago? Gusinan snapped in frustration. Even if the engagement is off, Su Ye's parents were kind to my family. I still have a responsibility toward her. Liang Jikai said with biting sarcasm. What responsibility? Since when does an employer have obligations toward their live-in maid? Gusinan was instantly rendered speechless. I let out a sigh, resolving to make a clean break with Gusinan once and for all. Gusinan, Mr. Liang is right. Our engagement has been called off. I'm just the country girl your family hired to help around the house. You have no obligations toward me. I won't be coming to your home anymore, and you don't need to transfer all the way to the southwest just to avoid me. Gusinan, let's leave it at this. Goodbye. Actually, no, let's make it a permanent farewell. I started working as a nanny at Liang Jikai's home. The Liang household was quite small. Liang Jikai's father served in the southern province military district, and his mother had joined him there to provide care. At home, it was just Liang Jikai and his grandparents. Both Grandpa Liang and Grandma Liang were very easy to get along with, so I quickly settled into my role as their nanny. In the morning, I accompanied Granny Liang to the grocery store to buy meat and vegetables. In the afternoon, I went fishing with Grandpa Liang. After dinner, I retreated to my room alone to read and practice calligraphy. Liang Jikai happened to notice me practicing calligraphy and let out a derisive snort. The very next day, he hauled back a whole crate of master calligrapher's works. I thanked him profusely. These masterpieces weren't even available for purchase at the supply and marketing cooperative. Liang Jikai's ears flushed crimson as he feigned nonchalance and waved a dismissive hand. Don't mention it. These are just some discarded items from the office that were going to be sold as scrap paper anyway. I gave a slight, closed-mouth smile. The next evening, 2 new dishes appeared on the dinner table: plum sauce spare ribs and sweet and sour pork. Granny Liang chuckled and teased, "Oh my, how come everything tonight is Jikai's favorite?" My face flushed. I buried it in my rice bowl. Liang Jikai stole a glance at me, the tips of his ears growing warm. After the meal, I mustered up my courage and called out to Liang Jikai as he was about to go upstairs. Mr. Liang, I'd like to sign up for night school. The thing is, I don't know where to sign up, or if they'd even accept someone from out of town like me. My face flushed with embarrassment, a country girl working as a housemaid, overestimating her own abilities, wanting to attend night school and take college entrance exams. Would Liang Jikai laugh at me? After all, in my past life I had mentioned to Gu Xinan that I wanted to continue my studies and take the college entrance exams. Back then, I naively believed that getting into university and becoming a college student would make me worthy of Gu Xinan, who had already become a regiment commander. At that time, Gu Xinan just glanced at me contemptuously and said coldly, "You're in your 20s now, surely you don't still want to go back to middle school. You're married now, your place is at home, taking good care of your parents, given a second chance at life. I no longer chase after elusive romance, I want to see if I can get into college." Could I ever reach such heights that even Gu Xinan would have to look up in awe? Liang Jikai agreed to help me look into it. 5. To my surprise, the very next day, he drove me to the night school to get registered, trying to contain my excitement. I paid the registration fee and received a stack of textbooks. On the way back, my steps were light, and I couldn't help but hum the folk songs from my hometown. Liang Jikai chuckled softly, his peach blossom eyes gazing tenderly. "Just attending night school makes you this happy?" I nodded vigorously. "Yes, Mr. Liang, thank you, I truly appreciate it." When I went to register, I finally understood, the night school was indeed intended for locals, requiring a local household registration to enroll. Liang Jikai must have pulled quite a few strings to get me registered. Liang Jikai grinned, "If you really want to thank me, call me brother." Blushing, I mumbled in a tiny voice, "Brother Liang." Liang Jikai chuckled with delight. Gu Xinan's trembling voice suddenly came from behind. "Su Yi, what did you just call him?" Hearing the accusatory tone in Gu Xinan's voice, Liang Jikai's face darkened, as if struck by a sudden thought. He raised his arm and draped it over my shoulder, saying with intimate affection, "What's the big deal? Xiao Yi and I are close, so she calls me brother." Gu Xinan ignored him, his burning gaze fixed on me as he demanded through gritted teeth, "Su Yi, after all these years between our families, you're calling him brother? You've never once called me that." I cut Gu Xinan off impatiently. "Battalion Commander Gu, I'm grateful that General Gu and Aunt Yuan took me in and gave me a job. But you were the one who said it yourself, I'm just the country girl your family hired as a housemaid. I suppose a maid has no right to call her employer brother, does she?" Gu Xinan seemed to suddenly recall the scene from our first meeting. His face turned deathly pale. After a dazed moment, he explained with a bitter smile, "Su Yi, that's not what I meant." I cut off his feeble explanation once again. "Whether it is or isn't, it doesn't matter anymore, Battalion Commander Gu. Surely you wouldn't want Miss Jiang to misunderstand if we continue seeing each other. I don't think there's any need for us to keep in touch from now on. Let's just act like strangers if we ever cross paths again." Perhaps the words, "not important," had wounded Gu Xinan's pride. After that day, I didn't see him again for a long time. I only heard by chance that he had submitted a request to be transferred to the Southwestern Front, just like in his previous life. Jiang Bailan also went there with the cultural troupe. In this lifetime, without me coming between them, Gu Xinan and Jiang Bailan should be able to find their happy ending soon. Right, in this lifetime, I finally found my purpose and direction to strive for. My progress at night school was remarkable, and within 6 months, the teacher personally wrote me a recommendation letter. With that recommendation letter, I skipped a grade and entered the 11th grade. Grandma Liang, feeling sorry for me being an orphan with nowhere else to go, insisted that I continue living with her and even offered to pay me a housekeeper's wage. I turned down the pay, just helping Granny Liang with housework and tending the vegetable garden in the evenings and on weekends to cover my rent. When Liang Jikai heard I was taking the college entrance exams, he brought over another big box of reference materials and mimeographed test papers for me. I looked at the brand new reference books and the test papers still smelling of fresh ink. I asked him pointedly, "And these, are they also scrap paper from your workplace?" Liang Jikai ruffled my messy bedhead with a firm hand. "Study hard. If you get in, I'll personally escort you to college." During this time, Commander Gu and Aunt Yuan also sent over a thick envelope. Inside were 1,000 yuan along with some grain and meat ration coupons. I sent it back exactly as it was, in my past life. I overestimated myself and caused them to be separated from their only son by thousands of miles, unable to reunite for 10 years. In this lifetime, I don't want to have the slightest connection with the Gu family. Time flew by, and in the blink of an eye, the day of the college entrance exam arrived. To my surprise, Gu Xinan actually traveled a great distance, took time off work, and came back just to see me off for my exam. However, he still lost out to Liang Jikai. He watched as I hoisted my backpack and climbed into Liang Jikai's jeep. In Gu Xinan's eyes, there seemed to lurk a regret and sorrow I couldn't comprehend. Go, Su Yi, you've got this. I nodded, at a loss for words, and could only manage a stiff thank you. Liang Jikai just had to provoke him, deliberately raising his voice to say, Xiao Yezi, it's a good thing you broke off the engagement with this guy back then, otherwise I'd still be working as an unpaid nanny in their house. How could I possibly have taken the college entrance exam? You really should thank Battalion Commander Gu for his mercy in not marrying you. Gu Xinan's face turned pale, his lips parted as if he wanted to say something, but in the end, no words came out. I could only watch helplessly as my former fiancé got into the passenger seat of my arch-rival's car. 6. After the jeep had driven some distance, I suddenly heard the sound of an argument behind me. Through the rearview mirror, I saw Jiang Bailan, who was once elegant and dignified, acting like a madwoman. She was grabbing Gu Xinan's clothes, scratching and clawing at him while crying and shouting abuses. But that was Gu Xinan and Jiang Bailan's story. It had nothing to do with me anymore. I finished my last exam with complete focus. Liang Jikai came to pick me up with a vibrant bouquet of sunflowers on the way home. I learned from him that Gu Xinan had actually been up for a promotion after the last battle. But then, Jiang Bailan appeared on the battlefield. In the effort to rescue Jiang Bailan, Gu Xinan's battalion lost 5 soldiers. As a result, although Gu Xinan wasn't demoted, he received a major reprimand that was circulated throughout the entire army. For the next 5 years, unless he risks his life to achieve extraordinary feats, he won't have any chance of promotion. I asked in astonishment. Why on earth did Jiang Bailan insist on going to the front lines to find him? Liang Jikai let out a scornful laugh. I heard she found letters he'd written to another woman in Gu Xinan's suicide note. She made a scene, demanding to confront him and get answers. Who could have known her actions would get 5 soldiers killed? She's nothing but a walking disaster. This was the life Gu Xinan chose for himself. All I can offer is my respect and best wishes. Half a month later, my university admission letter finally arrived at the residential compound. When Grandpa Liang and Grandma Liang heard I got into Capital Medical University, they were so thrilled they sent the guard to buy celebratory candies. Then they took me around to deliver the candies to every household in the compound. When I arrived at the Gu residence, I keenly sensed that Aunt Yuan and Commander Gu's smiles seemed somewhat forced. Upon hearing I was admitted to Capital Medical University, Commander Gu gifted me an imported fountain pen. Aunt Yuan gave me a red envelope with money inside. As I was leaving the Gu residence, I ran into Gu Xinan and Jiang Bailan right at the entrance. The moment Jiang Bailan laid eyes on me, her face instantly contorted with disgust. Su Yi, you've already called off the engagement with Brother Gu. How dare you shamelessly cling to him? Don't think getting into university makes you worthy of Brother Gu. Let me be frank with you, I'm already carrying Brother Gu's child. Gu Xinan's face darkened as he violently shook off Jiang Bailan's hand. He looked at me anxiously and said, Su Yi, it's not what she said. What happened between us was just an accident. Jiang Bailan let out a sharp cry and rushed forward to slap Gu Xinan across the face. Gu Xinan, are you even a real man? I'm carrying your child. What are you trying to say now? Now that you've seen your precious little Yi all grown up and in college, do you regret breaking off the engagement, thinking of dumping me to get back with your darling little Yi? Let me make this clear, dream on. If you dare abandon me and our child, I'll report you to your military unit. Gu Xinan, exasperated by her antics, couldn't resist shoving her hard. Jiang Bailan, stop dragging the innocent into this. You know perfectly well how that child in your belly came to be. With that forceful shove, Jiang Bailan tumbled down the stairs. Seeing the blood spreading across her skirt, Jiang Bailan let out a piercing scream. My baby, my child. I heard Jiang Bailan ultimately lost the baby she was carrying. She threatened to report him to the police, to have Gu Xinan sent to jail. Aunt Yuan pleaded desperately, and Commander Gu had Gu Xinan tied up and beaten so severely he broke a leather belt. Gu Xinan's body was covered in bruises. Yet he clenched his teeth and stubbornly refused to agree to marry Jiang Bailan. In the end, Aunt Yuan knelt before Gu Xinan, forcing him to consent to the marriage with Jiang Bailan. I couldn't understand what Gu Xinan was so resistant to, yet in his previous life, he'd rather risk his life on the battlefield than return home for a decade. I still want to be with Jiang Bailan. In this lifetime, I stepped aside for their love. Why is he rejecting it now? Soon enough, the day for college orientation arrived. The orientation day happened to coincide with Gu Xinan and Jiang Bailan's wedding. 7. I didn't go myself, but asked Granny Liang to pass along a red envelope on my behalf. To my surprise, 2 days later, I spotted Gu Xinan, with a scruffy beard, standing downstairs from my dorm. He actually ditched his own wedding. The moment he saw me step out of the dorm, Gu Xinan rushed toward me without a second thought. Su Yi, you've been reborn too, haven't you? My mind went blank with a buzzing sound. Could it be that Gu Xinan has also returned, seeing my incredulous expression? Gu Xinan nodded with a bitter smile. Yes, I'm back too, but I came back too late. As if struck by a sudden thought, Gu Xinan's eyes reignited with hope as he exclaimed to me with visible excitement, "It's not too late, Su Yi. I returned during the wedding ceremony. I never actually registered the marriage with Jiang Bailan. Come away with me. Let's start over together in the southwest, a whole new life, just you and me. What do you say?" I took a step back and raised my left hand toward him. "I'm sorry, but I'm engaged." In this lifetime, my hands weren't worn from 30 years of servitude in the Gu household, nurtured by literature. They remained pale and slender. On the ring finger of her left hand, an exquisitely crafted diamond ring sent a sharp pang through Gu Xinan's eyes. The diamond's icy glare made it nearly impossible for Gu Xinan to keep his eyes open. His eyes stung and swelled as he instinctively took 2 steps back. His voice trembled with panic as he spoke. "Wait. How did you get engaged all of a sudden? I thought you came here for university." A jeep suddenly pulled up right behind us. Liang Jikai came over to me carrying 2 lunch boxes. Holding his hand, I said to Gu Xinan with deliberate emphasis, "Battalion Commander Gu, the university doesn't have any rule against getting engaged while attending college. On the day Brother Liang accompanied me to register, he proposed to me, and I said yes, we'll get married right after graduation." Gu Xinan snapped his head up, glaring at Liang Jikai with eyes wide in fury, and landed a heavy punch on him. Liang Jikai dropped his lunchbox and swung back with a retaliatory punch. The lunchbox hit the floor, spilling the braised pork all over the ground. Campus security rushed over and pulled the two apart. Staring at the braised pork trampled on the ground, Gu Xinan sneered, "Liang Jikai, you never understood Su Yi at all. She's vegetarian, can't stand eating meat. You don't even know her. What makes you think you can make her happy?" Liang Jikai laughed heartily. "Gu Xinan, you're the one who truly doesn't understand Su Yi. Su Yi's favorite dish is braised pork belly." Gu Xinan shook his head frantically. "Impossible, she never ate meat at our house." Liang Jikai shot me a pained look and said coldly, "That's because she doesn't dare. She feels like she's living under someone else's roof, already a burden by eating your family's food without contributing. She's too ashamed to help herself to the meat you bought." "But it's fine, Gu Xinan, if you don't care about Su Yi. I damn well do. If Su Yi marries me, I'll make sure she never has to go without braised pork in her life." Gu Xinan stood frozen in shock, as if struck by lightning. After that day, Liang Jikai called Commander Gu. Commander Gu personally led a team to take Gu Xinan back into custody. The next time news of Gu Xinan surfaced, 3 years had already passed. That year, I finally graduated from university and decided to hold our wedding back home with Liang Jikai. The military family compound looked just as familiar as ever. The only difference was that Commander Gu and Auntie Yuan had already moved out of the compound. Rumor had it that after Jiang Bailan married Gu Xinan, she couldn't endure his emotional abuse and was caught in bed with her dance partner from the cultural troupe. In a fit of rage, Gu Xinan accidentally beat Jiang Bailan into critical condition. To protect Gu Xinan, Commander Gu sacrificed his lifelong dignity, begged for help everywhere, and paid the Jiang family a hefty compensation. Ultimately, Gu Xinan was sentenced to 3 years in prison. The day I married Liang Jikai happened to be the very day Gu Xinan was released from prison. There he stood before me, gaunt and frail, clutching a bouquet of lilies. I could hardly believe this was the same dashing war hero from my past life, who once commanded the battlefield with such vigor. He saw me radiant in my pristine white wedding gown, standing beside Liang Jikai with a blossoming smile. Gu Xinan offered me the flowers with a bitter smile. I instinctively took 2 steps back. Gu Xinan looked at me with hurt in his eyes. "Little Leaf, I'm not here to cause trouble, I just wanted To see how you look in a wedding dress, it suddenly dawned on me, back in our previous life, when Dezanin and I got married, Aunt Yuan had originally prepared a wedding dress for me, all because Jiang Bailan tearfully confessed that she'd dreamed of wearing a wedding gown and standing side by side with Gu Xinan, so Gu Xinan handed over the custom-made wedding dress to Jiang Bailan without a second thought. Later, I showed up at the wedding in a white dress I'd hastily borrowed. I became the target of everyone's mockery and humiliation. Thankfully, in this lifetime, I've finally met the right person and put on the wedding dress meant only for me. Gu Xinan still insisted on giving me that bouquet of lilies, but Liang Jikai snatched it away and tossed it aside. Gu Xinan glared at him furiously. Liang Jikai sneered, "Gu Xinan, you keep professing your love for Su Yi, but you don't even know she's allergic to lily pollen. The one who actually loves lilies is Jiang Bailan. Isn't she?" Gu Xinan's face went pale, his lips trembling as he looked at me and murmured, I'm sorry, Su Yi, I didn't know." "Exactly, only those who truly love you would care about your every move, they know what you like and what you dislike." But Gu Xinan's feelings toward me stem from resentment, not love. After coming to this realization, I smiled gently and reassured, "It's alright, we were never close to begin with. So it's perfectly understandable that you wouldn't know about my lily pollen allergy. The banquet is about to start, let's go inside and take our seats." Just as I would with any other guest, I smoothly greeted Gu Xinan with practiced hospitality. The unfamiliar and distant attitude made Gu Xinan's eyes burn with unshed tears, his eyes trembled slightly, fists clenched tight, as if consumed by profound regret and anguish, yet I had no time to spare for his emotional turmoil. My wedding was about to begin. The moment I turned to leave, I thought I heard a faint murmur behind me, "Su Yi." Actually, back then as the ceremonial cannons fired, I could no longer make out what Gu Xinan was trying to say, but it didn't matter anymore. In this lifetime, he walked the path he chose for himself, and now, it's time for me to embark on my own journey. The end. Story 2, I lost the dare, and my boyfriend insisted I steal a bite from the poor student's meal. What are you waiting for? Go on, I can't wait to see him lose his cool. Am I back to 10 years ago? Approaching the poor student, I grabbed a piece of pickled radish and popped it into my mouth. He looked up, his eyes cold. Then, under everyone's gaze, I placed sweet and sour ribs and braised pork, all onto his plate. "This is to make up for the radish I took. I hope you don't mind." I looked at the future tech mogul, my eyes smiling. "Hello Susan at 17, I'm Mengyu, also 17. It just so happened that year you were insecure, and it just so happened that year I was radiant." "1. Mengyu, you lost the dare. Go ahead and grab a bite from his bowl." When I opened my eyes again, my childhood friend and boyfriend Fu Ran was cheekily urging me to snag some food from Susan's bowl. The wealthy friends around us cheered him on. "Yeah, I can't wait to see the cool, aloof scholar." Embarrassed, "Huh, what cool, aloof scholar? Just a poor nobody, right now. He might have grades to show off, but once he's out in society, he'll just be working for us. Haha." Listening to them mock Susan, I scoffed. Birds of a feather flock together. As always, even the most innocent students have their own circles. I am the daughter of a government official. Fu Ran is the son of a wealthy businessman. We grew up together in the same luxurious neighborhood, childhood sweethearts. Thus, those we hung out with were all rich or noble, but I never liked this circle. However, I had no choice, as my parents restricted my social circle. Besides them, no one else played with me. 10 years ago, influenced by them, I took a piece of pickled radish from Susan's bowl. Then, I placed a chocolate I had with me next to his hand. That was the only interaction between him and me throughout our youth. Back then, he always walked with his head down, so low, as if he would sink into the dust at any moment. 2. 10 years later, I had completely forgotten about him. Until we met again at a sweet potato stall. By then, he had become a famous tech mogul, a powerful and influential figure, whereas I, after my father's imprisonment and my husband's abandonment, had become the city's biggest joke. 3. Why take such a long detour just to buy these lousy sweet potatoes? A woman with a new Hermes complained by the stall. "Hey, these aren't lousy sweet potatoes. These are golden sweet potatoes baked by the daughter of a chief, Mr. Zhou." "Is that really Miss Meng? She looks like she's in her 30s, guaranteed." After her father was brought down and Fu Ran left her, she ended up like this. That's too sad. Hearing them speak, the Hermes woman, stepping forward in her heels, approached me. "Boss, give me 10 more sweet potatoes, make them tasty." I'm buying them for my housekeepers and drivers. I smiled ingratiatingly. Of course, miss, you are both beautiful and kind. Hearing me call her miss, she became even happier. Make it another 10. The man on the other side grabbed her. Why buy so much? You can't finish it all. She frowned disdainfully. How could I possibly eat this kind of low-class food? Low-class food. In the past, I always liked to buy street food to feed stray cats, but I never ate any myself. At that moment, the boomerang of youth hit me right between the eyes. I pursed my lips and sped up the flipping of the food. Let me help you. When Su-sun, dressed in a suit and leather shoes, appeared before me, I was completely stunned. He took me, a homeless person, to his private villa. There was no imprisonment, no coercion, nothing lecherous. He simply, like a friend, gave me a place to stay and helped me find a decent job. I was grateful to him and always thought about how to repay his kindness. But I didn't know how. On many nights, when I went out to get water, I would see Su-sun standing in front of the large floor-to-ceiling window, his pale fingers holding a lit cigarette. The moonlight spread coolly over the ground, surrounding him in a chill, consumed by solitude. Often, I wanted to hug him from behind, to comfort him, but I had no right to do so. Time passed. He truly expected nothing from me. He lacked nothing. Maybe he took me home simply because he felt pity for me. Just like how I used to pick up stray cats and dogs from the streets, until he fell ill from overwork and was diagnosed with cancer. He still remembered my birthday and insisted on having me make a wish and blow out candles by his hospital bed. He said, a princess's birthday must be ceremonial. Indeed, later on, he always liked to call me princess. The disease had ravaged him. He was so thin that his eye sockets were hollow, barely human. Even his hand, placing candles, was pale and bony. He strained to smile at me. Princess, happy birthday. His voice was faint. I had to lean close to his mouth to hear him clearly, tears in my eyes. I watched him, but he kept smiling at me. Quick, blow out the candles. His gaze, as if trying to etch my face into his memory forever. Smiling, he closed his eyes. The hand holding mine suddenly lost its strength. Hanging limply by the bed, I tasted the flavor of sadness. Like trees and grass soaked in a heavy rain, damp and aching all over. Trembling, I blew out the candles and closed my eyes to make a wish. Oh God, my wish for my 27th birthday is to go back to being 17. Unexpectedly, my birthday wish came true. When I opened my eyes again, my rowdy friends were pushing me around. Miss Meng, what are you dazed about? Come on, I can't wait to see him explode. They laughed maliciously in Su-sun's direction. 17-year-old Su-sun was sitting in a corner eating. The lighting was dim, his silhouette lonely. Just like him at 27, whether in poverty or wealth, he always kept to himself. Seeing him young and healthy again, my eyes welled up with tears. I approached Su-sun boldly with my tray. As he dined on the free pickled vegetables provided by the cafeteria, he saw that I wanted to sit next to him. The already cramped space tightened further as he shifted to make room. My large tray held nothing but rice, pickled radish, pickled cabbage, and a bowl of broth with pickled vegetables that had no trace of oil. At that moment, I felt a piercing pain spread through my body. After he was diagnosed with cancer, he could have tried chemotherapy, but the doctor said his body was too weak, malnourished from his younger days, which had left him with chronic health issues. Ultimately, he didn't even survive the second round of chemotherapy. Looking at his gaunt face, I choked up. Could you let me have some? I tried to control my emotions but couldn't complete my sentence. He must think I'm crazy. I composed myself and remained silent. Surprising him, I picked up a piece of radish and put it in my mouth. It was salty and astringent, like chewing wax. Su-sun, I'm sorry I'm late. When I looked up again, I only saw his cold expression. Classmate, you can get pickled radish for free over there. Please don't make such boring jokes. At this point in the cafeteria, many students had stopped eating and turned to look at us, their voices loud with discussion, especially the table in front of us, where the voices were loudest. Haha, Miss Meng is really bold, daring to provoke the aloof genius. It's only your high school classmates who call him a genius. His nickname in elementary and middle school was Disaster. Oh, why do they call him Disaster? Isn't it because he caused the death of his biological parents? And also, hearing the word disaster, he clenched his fists, veins bulging on his pale skin. Before the girl at the front table could finish, I stood up. Didn't your parents teach you not to gossip about classmates behind their backs? Still not satisfied, I added, you may have parents, but it seems you lack home training. The girl I confronted didn't dare to provoke me further. only muttering quietly, "Is she on the wrong medication? Didn't she used to tease Susun?" This angered me even more. And I was about to give her a piece of my mind, then I felt a cold touch on my hand. It was Susun holding me back. "Sit down and eat." His tone was calm, and his expression had returned to normal. After sitting down, under everyone's gaze, I moved all the sweet and sour ribs and braised pork from my bowl to his plate. I said with a pleading look, "This is to make up for eating your radish. I hope you don't mind." Oh. And although we've been classmates for so long, it seems we've never really met. "Hello, 17-year-old Susun, I'm 17-year-old Mengyu." I smiled brightly and reached out my hand in friendship. My words poured out rapidly, and he just stared blankly as my mouth moved. "I'm full." After a pause, he dropped those words and left, leaving me stunned in place, and the chocolate I had almost squeezed to a pulp, still ungiven. After I arrived, I didn't eat anything at all. Later, feeling guilty, I gave him a piece of chocolate when I left. Fu Ran even mocked that this would be the best thing Susun would ever eat in his life, but 10 years later, while I was organizing Susun's study, I saw that piece of chocolate again on his desk. Susun had preserved it under a delicate glass dome filled with a special gas to prevent it from decaying. In that moment, countless thoughts flashed through my mind and a surge of emotions overwhelmed me. The chocolate in the palm of my hand revealed the secret he had kept hidden, but now, the vast differences in our social statuses and the great disparity made me suppress all those thoughts. After all, it's just a piece of chocolate. What could it really signify? I'm no longer the wealthy young lady I once was. What right do I have to stand by his side? Ha ha ha, Mengyu, that was rather harsh of you, giving your leftovers to the unlucky star. If anyone is insulting, it's you, the young mistress. Fu Ran plopped down next to me. I looked at him in surprise. So in their eyes, my actions were an insult to Susun. Could it be that Susun thought the same? Ah, what a fool I am. All I thought about was wanting him to eat well, but the way I expressed it was so upsetting. Pei Pei sat on the other side, speaking slowly. "But why did you help that disaster earlier? Those girls weren't wrong. Susun caused the death of his own parents and his younger sister. If you get close to him, sooner or later, he'll bring disaster upon you too." Pei Pei was also part of our circle. As the son of the principal, he had considerable influence at school. He had a violent temper and often bullied his classmates under the guise of playing games. After my family fell into decline, Fu Ran's attitude towards me changed overnight. He began to encourage me to curry favor with Pei Pei, all for a big contract. But I foolishly continued to harbor illusions about them. After all, we had been friends for many years. It wasn't until a joint family trip, when Fu Ran went to the room next door and Pei Pei entered my room, that I realized how rotten our circle had become. I gave Pei Pei a cold look and retorted irritably, "So superstitious, then why keep doing heartless things without fearing being struck by lightning one day?" Pei Pei's face turned pale instantly. "Mengyu, what did you say?" "Say that again if you dare." Seeing our confrontation escalating, Fu Ran quickly tried to mediate. No, Master Pei, she's not in her right mind today. Don't take it to heart." I shook off his disgusting, filthy hand. "You're no better, a rotten person." Both were stunned by my sharp insults. They seemed not to understand how I had suddenly changed today. Before they could react, I quickly returned to the classroom. I couldn't stand to stay in this thoroughly rotten circle a moment longer. When I got back to the classroom, the bell for class had already rung. I had no choice but to wait until after class to explain to Susun that I hadn't meant to put my leftovers in his bowl. This class was my least favorite, math. Although I wasn't in the mood to study, I forced myself to pay attention. In my previous life, it was because of neglecting subjects like this that I didn't get into a good university. After graduating from college, I married Fu Ran. I spent the first half of my life depending on my father, and the second half would depend on my husband. This is how people ruin themselves. So, after I broke away from that circle, due to my lack of specialized skills and impressive educational background, I found myself destitute, selling sweet potatoes. Given a second chance by fate, I was determined to seize it firmly. I listened intently, eyes wide open. For half a class, unfortunately, friends will leave you, husbands will betray you. But math won't, because what you don't know in math, you just don't know. Listening to a math class was like trying to understand an arcane script to me. Sighing, I looked around, my gaze settled to the left. There sat a figure, both unfamiliar yet familiar, sitting upright attentively, eyes fixed on the blackboard, occasionally jotting down calculations on a piece of paper. He was lean, his face pale and gaunt, lacking vitality, with a persistent shade of light blue shadowing his brow. Compared to his commanding presence 10 years later, he now appeared somewhat green and insecure. Mengyu, what are you staring at? Stand up and tell us. Caught staring at Susan too intently, I was called out by the old math teacher. Calmly standing up, I cheekily replied, I was looking at Susan. The class erupted in murmurs. Only Susan continued to quietly work on his problems, though his fair ears visibly reddened. My math was poor. And this bold declaration only infuriated the teacher further. Come on, tell me, what about him are you looking at? Don't even think of leaving class until you explain, I said with a beaming smile. Because he's handsome. That remark set the whole class abuzz. As expected, I was asked to leave the classroom. However, given my father's status, it wasn't long before another teacher took me to the office to cool off in the air conditioning. After class, I couldn't wait to find Susan to explain about the meal. He kept his head down, working on problems, and didn't look at me, merely responding lightly, it's okay. I didn't think much of it. I breathed a sigh of relief. Glad you didn't misunderstand me. He was surprisingly easy to get along with. Why had I always thought he was so cold and difficult before? Seeing him still focused on his problems, I felt it improper to disturb him further. I placed my favorite chocolate next to his hand, bent down, and smiled at him. This is my favorite chocolate, for you. He glanced at it, then his gaze returned to his book. Thanks, but I don't eat it. It's really tasty, just try it. I peeled off the chocolate's foil wrapper and popped it into his mouth. My fingertips brushed his lips, sending a tingling sensation through my body. He looked at me in shock. I was flustered. Time seemed to stop, and he even forgot to chew, my face burning. But with no turning back, I bravely said, tastes good. Right, I didn't lie. I'll bring you some every day. With that, I ran off. When school was over, Fu Ran blocked my way home. I frowned at him. What's up? His arms crossed, his expression displeased. What's gotten into you today? Why are you so nice to that Jinx? I want to. Why do you care? He grabbed my shoulders. Today, because of Susan, you offended Pei. Susan will become his next target in his games. No way. Is he crazy? If he has a problem, he should come at me. Hearing Susan's name made me anxious. Fu Ran's eyes darkened as he gripped my chin, his words deliberate. Mengyu, don't tell me you've fallen for that trash. With a sneer, I said, if I don't love him, do you think I'd love someone like you? Mengyu. He was infuriated by my words, angrily pushing me against the wall and kissing me forcefully. Memories of the past flashed through my mind. I felt so disgusted that I almost threw up. I pushed him away with all my might and slapped him across the face. What are you doing, Fu Ran? He loomed over me, using his strength to pin me tightly between his arms. What am I doing? Didn't I tell you that the woman you saw that day was my sister? Weren't you just trying to provoke me by bringing up Susan? Wow, this scumbag. I've really had it with him. Just as I was about to retort, I caught a glimpse of someone out of the corner of my eye. Susan. He was holding a trash can, walking towards the classroom. As he passed by, his gaze fell on Fu Ran and me. In just a second, he casually shifted his gaze away and continued on his way. My chest felt painfully tight. So, he must think again that I approached him just to irritate Fu Ran. I seized the moment to deliver a strong hit to Fu Ran's vulnerable spot. Fu Ran doubled over in pain. If you're sick, go see a doctor. Okay. I dropped that line and ran after Susan. It took me a while to catch up to him. I grabbed his sleeve and explained, I don't like Fu Ran. He's a scoundrel. He forced me just now. Susan kept walking. His long strides meant that his quick pace was like a jog to me. As he moved swiftly, he responded, Miss Meng, I'm not interested in your romantic affairs. You don't need to explain. He's not my boyfriend. Then, remembering that we hadn't officially broken up, I added, although we haven't broken up yet, we will soon. He stopped, looked at me seriously, and said, Mengyu, I'm neither interested nor have the time to be a plaything for you wealthy folks. Please don't talk to me anymore. Thank you. The last two words, he almost gritted out. After saying that, he walked away without looking back. His words felt like a cold shower from head to toe. I stood there for a while, feeling the sunset was particularly glaring. Why are there always so many misunderstandings between us, always missing each other? It's okay, I comforted myself. Now, I am the daughter of a high-ranking official. What does rejection matter to me? I followed him again, but this time, it provoked his anger. Stop following me, get lost. 10 years later, it was just like 10 years ago. This was the first time in all our time together that he had been so harsh with me. Looking at his fierce demeanor, I felt helpless. After a while, I managed to muster a smile. Well then, goodbye, see you tomorrow. Turning away, my eyes moist, my heart felt choked. For several days, I left chocolates on his desk. Of course, he threw them all into the trash can. I stared at the chocolates in the trash for a long time, feeling lost, sad, powerless. These emotions surged like the sea, enveloping me. It's okay, misunderstandings, there's always a way to clear them up. Because Pepe announced that Su-sun would be the target of the next game, the whole class started to refuse cooperation with Su-sun during his role as the math class representative. Whenever Su-sun went to collect homework, there were always those who deliberately dropped their assignments on the floor, forcing him to bend down and pick them up, so I took it upon myself to help him collect them. The next time I placed the collected homework on his desk, he finally spoke up, "Classmate Meng, I've resigned from the class representative position. Please, keep your distance from me from now on." The small flame of hope that had rekindled within me was abruptly extinguished. After a few seconds of silence, I couldn't help but ask again, "Why?" He glanced up at me, his eyes cold and indifferent. His thin lips uttered chilling words. "Because I hate you." I don't remember how I managed to return to my seat. That entire day, I was utterly distraught. I couldn't understand why. Even after returning 10 years back, was it still so difficult? Oh God, please tell me, what should I do next? "Meng, come to my office," the class teacher called out during my moment of gloom, which brightened my spirits. Our class teacher was a young woman, and my mother always tried to win her over by gifting her designer handbags to look after me. She was incorruptible, having entered this profession with a dream of teaching. She always insisted that I return these bags to my home, but I knew, in this world, no one is incorruptible. You think she is upright and clean because the price you offer isn't something she desires. Absolute power leads to absolute corruption. This time, I didn't just obediently return the handbags. Instead, I closed the door to her office and gently pushed the Chanel bag she handed me back towards her. With a smile, I said, "Teacher Chen, your bag looks really nice." I moved my chair closer to her and continued under her surprised gaze. "Teacher Chen, I heard your husband and child are in Jincheng. It would be great if his job could be relocated to Hangzhou." At the mention of this, her eyes lit up. I lowered my voice so only the two of us could hear. "My father has a comrade who is a key figure in Hangzhou's personnel department." After pondering for a moment, Teacher Chen took the bag back and said softly, "This bag was recommended by your mother. It is indeed beautiful." Teacher Chen was very efficient. Before the class bell even rang, I found myself seated next to Su-sun, and Fu Ran, who was previously seated close to us, was now distanced miles away, fuming with anger. He was helpless. Under the class teacher's carrot and stick approach, Su-sun had no choice but to set aside our past grievances and reluctantly became my math tutor. Su-sun taught half-heartedly, but I studied with utmost seriousness. In this new chance at life, I truly did not want to be a useless person dependent on others anymore. Yet, math was truly nauseating. For those who excelled, like Su-sun who always scored full marks, they were genuinely brilliant. For those who struggled, like me, sometimes even scoring in the single digits, once again, I was stumped by a giveaway question according to Su-sun. "This type of question has been explained twice by old Wang, and I have gone over it 3 times with you. If you still don't get it, I suggest you give up on math." The way he looked at me was as if he was staring at an idiot. A surge of anger rushed to my head. "Su-sun, I'm mad, don't underestimate me. I will solve this problem today no matter what." Half an hour later, Su-sun came over. In a fit of anger, "You just wrote a solution," he said, his eyes twinkling with a mischievous gleam. That was the first time I saw him smile. Time seemed to freeze, my mind went blank, and I just stared at him stupidly. Perhaps my gaze was too intense. He looked back at me. At that moment of eye contact, I guiltily turned away and said sheepishly, "They say under pressure, people can do anything, but I guess that doesn't apply to math." No sooner had I finished speaking than Su-sun, with his head lowered, started laughing, his ears turning red. Is his sense of humor really that low? "Meng, is this really your reason for breaking up with me?" Fu Ran, fuming, threw all the books on my desk to the floor. His voice was loud, drawing the attention of everyone else in the library. I gave him a cold glance and said sharply, "What, they let you out of the hospital before you recovered?" Hearing this, he became even more incensed and started causing a scene. disturbing the other students who were trying to study. Susan intervened. Fu, this is a place for studying. If you're not going to study, please leave. Heh, studying, you think just because you can read a few books, you can steal my girlfriend and beat me? My family has worked hard for generations. How could we lose to someone who's only studied hard for 10 years? You'll end up working for me in the future. There he goes again, this brainless man, starting another of his arrogant rants. I stood up and said deliberately, 10 years of hard study is precisely what will overcome your family's 3 generations of business. He sneered. Oh, so you've decided to stick with this pauper? I scoffed. Laughable. What I do is none of your business. What? You think the injury you got last time wasn't enough, and now you want to be completely cut off? I glared at him provocatively, speaking venomously, thinking about the pain he experienced last time. He instantly backed down. Mengyu, I'm going to tell your parents. You just wait. Ridiculous. With that, he walked away, tail between his legs. I picked up the books from the floor and got back to studying. When Susan tried to say something, I spoke first. Last time, you misunderstood me. I wasn't using you to get back at him. I have nothing to do with him anymore. Last time, it was him, desperate, who spoke those words. He kissed me. It was against my will. I even thought about calling the police on him for harassment. So, please believe me. I really didn't. I was anxious to clear up the misunderstanding, my words tumbling out incoherently, but before I could finish, he interrupted. I believe you. Ah, no need to explain. I believe you, really. It felt as if the moon in my heart had risen again, and the stars shone brighter. Yeah, Susan seemed to hesitate for a moment, then asked, but why do you treat Fu Ran like that? Memories of being thrown out of my house in a previous life. Stripped and humiliated in the snow by the man I loved from school uniform to wedding dress, surged through my mind. This love had nearly driven me to death back then. I held back my sadness and replied, because he made my life a living hell. Ah, Susan was somewhat surprised, but I couldn't and didn't want to let him know about these humiliating experiences. All I could do was laugh it off and change the subject. Also, because the person I truly like is you, at that. Susan really didn't press further. Instead he blushed, lowered his head, and went back to his work. Seeing that he didn't quite believe me, I suddenly had an impulse, took his hand, and confessed seriously, Susan, life is short. From now on, let me be with you. Okay. He was stunned for a few seconds, then quickly withdrew his hand, his neck turning an embarrassingly bright red. Solve this problem first. It will make my life a bit less bitter. Reinvigorated. I diligently worked through the problems. Our relationship gradually eased. He taught me math every day, and I brought him lunch every day. Auntie, please make some extra sweet and sour ribs in the blue thermal box, and double the rice portion, twice as much as mine. Housekeeper Aunt Jean nodded with a smile. All right. It seems young Master Fu has a sweet tooth. Boys his age do eat a lot. I'll pack some extra for him. It's not for Fu Ran, if he so much as ate a grain of my rice. I'd have to call the police. Ah, then for whom? Oh, don't worry miss, I won't tell anyone. I hugged her waist and cooed, hee hee, Aunt Zhang, you're the best. Please double the bird's nest in the blue box too. He studies so hard, he needs to replenish. Ah, he's a big boy, he shouldn't be eating bird's nest with you. I prepared 8 treasure tea with fine ginseng for him. My words were sweeter than honey. Ah, Aunt Zhang, you understand so well. And your cooking is so delicious. I love you to death, always clowning around. Go to school now. Under my careful feeding, Susan visibly became healthier. He no longer had to eat tasteless and greasy food in the cafeteria. Gradually, he gained weight, no longer so thin that a gust of wind could blow him over. Every day, I unwaveringly supervised him finishing a bar of chocolate with a glass of milk. His academic performance became even more frightening. Even before the college entrance examination, several prestigious universities had already extended their offers to him. With his tutoring, my math grades also started to improve. Now, he didn't just tutor me in math, but in other subjects as well. With his support and my own relentless efforts, my grades soared. In this life, I am determined to carve out a grand path for myself, because I know my father's downfall is inevitable. A crisis does not form overnight. It had been brewing since my childhood. All I can do is make myself strong. Strong enough that in 10 years, without relying on anyone, I can stand shoulder to shoulder with Susan, even if the world changes, even if the constellations shift. Years later, the world will also be ours. Susan, I want us to meet at the peak, and during the climb, I want to be the one by your side, forever. In this life, with my efforts, a seed of love has quietly sprouted in our hearts. We understand each other without needing to say a word. After resolving that misunderstanding, he started calling me princess again. I asked him, "Why do you always like to call me princess?" After thinking it over seriously, he said, "The day you offered me sweet and sour pork ribs as a friendly gesture, you were like a princess saving the world from suffering. Though high above, you are extremely kind." I laughed brightly but felt a bit puzzled inside. In my past life, I never made the first move towards him. Why did he still call me princess later on? But the answer doesn't matter anymore, because, in the long journey of life, I will be there with you. The day the autonomous admission exam at University A ended, I went to use the restroom, and just like that, Susan disappeared. A bad premonition welled up inside me. Sure enough, it was Fu Ran who had found Pei Pei, and they used the dirtiest and most despicable means to bully Susan during this period, because I was always by Susan's side. Pei Pei didn't have the opportunity to lay hands on him. This time, they dragged him into a small alley near the school. By the time I got there, a few people were holding Susan, while Fu Ran and Pei Pei took turns hitting him. Susan's face was contorted, his hands covering his abdomen, falling to the ground in pain. His breathing was rapid and unstable, sweat beading on his forehead, but he clenched his teeth, refusing to let any moans escape. Pei Pei spat out, "Damn, such a tough bone. Won't beg for mercy even close to death." Just as his fist was about to hit Susan again, I pulled out my phone to make a call. Hearing the sound, Pei Pei turned to look at me with ill intentions and walked towards me. "What? Miss Meng is going to call the police." I clenched my fist, staring back at him fearlessly. He arrogantly continued, "Ha, call the police. Doesn't Miss Meng know what my uncle does in the police department?" As he was about to snatch my phone, I immediately spoke with a crying tone, "Hello, Dad, I'm in the alley by the school. Please come save me." Hearing this, Pei Pei panicked a bit. "Fu Ran, didn't you say her dad went to Beijing?" I threatened. "Even if he went to Beijing, try touching me and see what happens." "Fu Ran, does your family's company no longer want to go public?" Right then, the shrill sound of police sirens grew closer. The group panicked and scattered. I helped Susan up and took him home, all the way. Looking at his injuries, I felt both sad and guilty. If it weren't for me, those scoundrels wouldn't have targeted him. If it weren't for me, he wouldn't have been hurt today. "Princess," Susan interrupted my ramblings and continuous apologies. This is the 100th time you've said sorry." "Ah, sorry, am I being too annoying?" "The 101st time." I never expected that Susan would be living in the medical staff quarters where I lived as a child. The once bustling medical staff quarters were now dilapidated and barely inhabited. Susan's home was old but clean. After knocking, Susan's grandmother, with her hair fully white, opened the door for us. Her vision was somewhat blurry, and her movements were no longer as nimble. Yet, Grandma knew he had been hurt and kept asking him if he had been fighting with someone. Susan was hesitant and couldn't give a clear answer. I took it upon myself to explain to Grandma, "Grandma, I'm Susan's classmate, Mingyu. You didn't know, but today I was bullied by some thugs, and Susan rescued me. However, he got hurt in the process. Grandma, he's my hero." After hearing this, Grandma first praised Susan extensively, then, she began to grumble about telling the teacher to seek justice for us. After much persuasion from me, she finally agreed to temporarily hold off on reporting the incident and went to make us some noodles instead. Once we got to Susan's bedroom, I began applying medicine to his wounds. Before we even finished, his expression suddenly twisted in pain. "Play on the computer for a bit. I need to use the restroom," he said, leaving me alone, utterly bored. At that moment, an old-fashioned computer that was turned on caught my attention with a particular folder. I clicked on it, only to find it required a password. The stars in the sky blink and wink. Seeing this phrase, my hands involuntarily typed a few characters on the keyboard. "There's a rag doll by the roadside." To my surprise, it unlocked. It was as if an autoplay button had been pressed. The nursery rhyme echoed in my mind, recited by a gentle female voice once again. Inside the folder were numerous diary entries from Susan's mother. December 25, 1996, today. I found out I'm pregnant and was also promoted to attending physician. I've worked so hard for so many years, and finally, I have a good return. All this good fortune must have come from you, my baby. You truly are mommy's lucky star. Let's call you little lucky star. May 20th, 1997, just at the unit. my senior colleague personally examined me and confidentially told me that it's a boy. Su Chang asked what name we should give to the child, since his nickname is Lucky Star. Perhaps his formal name should be Wuyo, Su Wuyo, Su Wuyo. May you live a life free of worries, Wuyo, your mom and dad will love you dearly. March 17, 2002, my Wuyo really loves candied haws, just like his father, so fond of sweets. I've been promoted to chief physician, but I still owe it to my senior colleague's recommendation. It turns out her husband is so capable, holding such a high position at such a young age, but she always has a drink before going to the operating table. A habit that no amount of persuasion can break. I'm really worried something might happen, but on a happier note, Su Chang's sketches are selling better and better, and everything at home is moving in a good direction. Our savings have also started to increase. Wuyo asks every day for a little brother or sister, which isn't feasible. I didn't realize when Su Sun had sat down beside me. I jumped, quickly wiping away my tears, but before I could explain or apologize, he spoke first. It turns out that he, like me, once lived in an incredibly happy family. His mother was a doctor and his father a painter, with favorable family conditions. He was the apple of their eye. That was until his mother passed away. Every child wishes for their parents to be in love, except me. Ever since the year my mother passed, my birthday wish every year has been for my dad to stop loving her. Unfortunately, heaven didn't heed my wishes. He continued to love her forever. Loving her so much that he was willing to give up on me, and even life itself. Susan spoke these words with a calmness as if a light breeze was passing by, yet, my tears, once again, began to fall. Susan's mother had died from complications during a premature labor due to a medical accident, yet, his father blamed everything on Susan. Disaster, as everyone calls me. People usually detest their nicknames, feeling insulted by them, but I can't because this nickname was given by my father. He said I was a disaster, that I caused the death of my mother and sister. My original name was Su Wuyo, meaning carefree, but he changed it to Su Sun. He said, how could I live a life without worries after causing the death of my mother and sister? Su Sun's eyes were hollow as he stared out the window, his tone so neutral it was as if he was talking about someone else's life. Dad was right, the premature labor was my fault. I insisted on having gourds in the middle of the night. At that hour, most shops were closed. My mother, pregnant with my sister, had to cross several streets before she found some. On her way back, she suffered from hypoglycemia. He suddenly stopped speaking, as if choked by a lump in his throat. After a while, he began again. Actually, there was still a chance when she was taken to the hospital. Unfortunately, the surgeon was her colleague who liked to drink before operating. At that moment, time seemed to freeze, my ears buzzed. My mind went blank, and suddenly, I couldn't hear anything. I don't know how I managed to leave Susan's house. I wandered the streets, dazed, until the biting cold wind finally snapped me back to reality. In fact, Susan's mother's colleague was my own mother. 10 years later, the downfall of my father was because he had been covering up for her. In my memory, my mother was under a lot of stress, so she often drank. No one could persuade her otherwise. Gradually, her drinking became alcoholism. Operating while drunk inevitably led to several medical accidents, all of which were initially covered up by my father, until one incident got media attention and my father couldn't suppress it any longer, leading to a scandal. Patients who had been harmed because of this eventually came forward. In the end, my mother was dismissed from the hospital, but with the last of his influence, my father managed to protect her. My father, however, took on all the blame and was sentenced. It turns out the mine laid by my parents was more dangerous and earlier than I had imagined. This mine not only destroyed the me 10 years from now but also left the current me utterly devastated. Suddenly, I seemed to understand. Why was I able to decipher that code? I remember that gentle and beautiful aunt who would sing nursery rhymes to comfort me when my mother was drinking. It was Susan's mother. Fate is indeed ironic. Only now do I understand what that piece of chocolate Susan had meant. 10 years later, it symbolized the overwhelming love he held back. Considering how capable he is, he must have known about our connection all along. That's why he always kept our relationship strictly platonic, and that's why he gave me just enough to get by, no more, no less. I stood by the riverbank, the winter wind chilling to the bone, the snow fell heavier, thick as goose feathers. I stretched out my hand, and a silver petal landed in my palm. Past and present life flashed before my eyes. Scene by scene, I stood there for a long time, so long that I lost all sensation. Susan, if heaven is willing to give us another chance, it means our fate is destined. Whether you are Su Sun or Su Wuyo, you are the love of my life, Mengyu. We are destined to embrace each other in this world filled with pain and love. If it's meant to be, I wish to walk through life with you. If it's a doomed fate, I will follow you to the underworld, Mengyu. I looked towards the voice. At the end of the long street, the twilight was dim. Su Sun stood there, his figure upright. My tears instantly overflowed. He walked towards me, step by step. I've been looking for you for a long time. What are you doing here alone? My voice was almost too hoarse to speak. How did you get here? You looked like you were in a trance when you left the house. The more I thought about it, the more wrong it seemed. So I came looking for you. Su Sun took off his scarf and wrapped it around my neck. I felt warmth spread through me. I looked at him, my vision blurring more and more. Su Sun, you are the one I would choose even if the whole world were against it, even if it means being cursed by thousands. I still decided to give it a try. Even if I'm just a small page in your story. Even if I can only be a small wave in the river of your life, I have to tell you. I took a deep breath, looked earnestly into his eyes, and slowly began. Su Sun, do you know why I was able to decipher that code? He looked back at me, silent. It's because that nursery rhyme was taught to me by your mother. Hearing the word mother, his eyes lit up. I continued, and my mother was the senior sister mentioned in your mother's diary. His pupils dilated, and his face turned pale. He stood there motionless for a long time, like a marionette. His reaction was as expected. Time slowly passed, until we were both covered in a thick layer of snow. I slowly said, let's go home. Goodbye, Su Sun. I turned around, crying inconsolably. Today is my 17th birthday. Su Sun is not by my side, facing the heavy snow. I make a wish, dear heaven. My wish for my 17th birthday is for Su Sun to be safe and healthy for the rest of his life. In the days that followed, Su Sun and I seemed to return to the way we were at the beginning. I couldn't bring myself to reach out to him anymore. Even though I still placed chocolates on his desk every day, I never saw him eat them, nor did I see him throw them away. However, the fact that he still chose to sit with me was a good outcome. I didn't hope for anything more. Soon, winter passed and spring arrived. The college entrance exams were approaching, and time became increasingly tight. This time, driven by a frenzied determination, my grades improved steadily, although I still struggled with math. Fortunately, I knew Su Sun's habits well. He would mark important questions with a red pen. I could sneak a look. His notebooks were meticulously organized, categorizing various methods and common errors, the handwriting neat and the arrangement clear, and since he never took his notebooks home, I easily obtained what could be called a top student's treasure trove. After overcoming my weaknesses, my ranking steadily closed the gap with Su Sun. The mallow flowers bloomed, and the long summer stretched ahead. Once again, I entered the examination hall for the college entrance exams. After the results were released, I was ranked first in the school. Su Sun's results couldn't be found. Top universities like Tsinghua and Peking tried to call him but couldn't get through. They came directly to the school to recruit him. Later, I moved some money from home and, under the guise of the nanny, Mrs. Zhang, I gave Su Sun 1 million yuan in the name of sponsoring the top scholar. In the future, he would need this money as startup capital. In this life, I didn't want him to exhaust himself again, slowly saving up this money through sheer physical toll. As a result, I was whipped by my father and left covered in scars, because I told him that I had gambled away the million yuan. For several days, I was beaten so badly that I couldn't get out of bed, but ultimately, as his daughter, after he sternly warned me never to gamble again, he let me be. On the day of our graduation dinner, I drank several bottles of alcohol. Alcohol emboldens the cowardly. Once again, I found myself outside Su Sun's apartment. He came downstairs and upon seeing me, his eyes shimmered with emotion, but he hesitated to speak. The sky was overcast, ripped apart by a dazzling streak of light. Looking at his face, so familiar, I felt like crying. Su Sun, I know you can't accept me, but that's okay. Can you let me finish what I have to say? Seeing my tearful eyes, he could only nod. Su Sun, in the days to come, you must take good care of your health. You can't keep eating pickles and fermented tofu every day. You need better nutrition. Also, no matter how busy you are with your studies and career, you must get enough sleep. Of course, there's one more very important thing. After you graduate from college, you must get a thorough annual checkup, especially your liver. I was getting more urgent and emotional as I spoke. But before I could finish, he interrupted me. Mengyu, let's go to hell together. His voice was cool and detached, and I was taken aback for a moment. I stared wide-eyed, the sudden warmth on my lips rendering me momentarily speechless. When I came to my senses, I hugged him back tightly. Large raindrops began to fall. Soon, the rain was like a curtain, pouring down heavily. "Princess, it's raining." His voice was right by my ear as I looked out over the city shrouded in mist, feeling as if I were dreaming. The rain kept getting heavier, yet I couldn't bring myself to let go. It had taken all my strength and all the luck of my lifetime to embrace you so completely. 30, a decade later, my parents ended up with the same fate. During these 10 years, no matter how much I tried to persuade, I couldn't change the fact that my mother was an alcoholic, of course. My father's increasingly wayward path didn't change either. That was to be expected. I had seen his confession after he was caught. In the video, I didn't see any heartfelt remorse. All I saw was him accepting his fate with composure. So no matter how many times I might relive this life, I can't change that inevitable conclusion. Susan still ended up with cancer, but fortunately, it was discovered early this time, thanks to my meticulous care over the past decade. And his rigorous exercise routine under my watch, along with his early nights and early mornings, his body managed to withstand the surgery to remove part of his liver. Because he was in good physical health, he recovered quickly. However, the doctors said there was a possibility of recurrence, so he needed to live a regular life and keep his spirits up. I smiled confidently. With me around, I won't give those cancer cells any chance. 31, Susun. The hardships of fate have pushed you to the edge of a cliff, so let me sit with you at this cliff's edge, admire the flowing mist and fog, and from now on, we'll be inseparable in life and death. End of text. Susun side story. 1. Actually, calling Mengyu a princess started with our first meeting. Back then, my grandmother always tried to sneak into the rich neighborhood to scavenge through trash because even the garbage bins of the wealthy were full of treasures. One day, she was caught by security. She was pushed to the ground and couldn't get up. After receiving the call, I ran frantically to the rich area until I found my grandmother, and only then did my heart slightly calm down. While helping my grandmother home, I passed by Mengyu's house. At that time, she was hosting a birthday party. Her home was splendid, like a castle from a fairy tale. I saw her parents, relatives, and many classmates all around her. She stood in the center, smiling brightly and radiantly, and there I was outside, peering in, like a rat in the gutter, trying to glimpse the world's most beautiful princess. Unexpectedly, we met again at school later. Her boyfriend forced her to pick food from my plate, but all I had in my bowl was the free pickled vegetables from the cafeteria. At that moment, my inferiority was fully exposed. I knew she despised my food because it wasn't what her kind would eat. Luckily, she didn't eat it because how could a princess eat such things? Perhaps it was a whim, but before leaving, she gave me a piece of chocolate, too. Yet, her casual gesture stirred ripples in my life. When we met again, the once high and mighty princess was selling sweet potatoes, covered in dirt. She silently endured the mockery from her former friends. Seeing her like this choked my heart. By then, I knew about her parents. I also knew the unscrupulous doctor who operated on my mother and sister was her mother, but later, I thought it through. My father had directed all his resentment towards me. I had experienced that suffocating feeling, so why should I let history repeat itself on her? I took her home and treated her like a friend, suppressing my overwhelming love for her because I was afraid of scaring my little princess. Through our time together, I felt the warmth of life, successful in my career. The world is grand and brilliant, but it is also dark and bloody. No matter what the world is like, I will forever be an outsider, like duckweed, like a lost soul, until the princess appeared again, giving me a sense of grounding. She brought me warmth and sunlight, giving me a reason to live in this world. She is my journey home. I had hoped to let everyone know I love you when the clouds and fog cleared, but heaven didn't allow me to wait for that day. If I could live another life, my princess, could you come to my side a bit sooner? Story 2. Before I turned 16, I was the pampered daughter of the Song family, adored by my parents and favored by my brother, living a carefree life. However, everything changed when Song-ru came to us with a DNA test proving that a nurse had switched us at birth. She was the real heiress, and I was merely an interloper in the nest. I had thought about leaving, but my biological parents had already passed away, and Mrs. Song couldn't bear to see me orphaned, so she formally adopted me. My adopted parents treated me well, my brother didn't neglect me, and Song-ru never made things difficult for me. I was grateful, but later, Song-ru got into a dispute with a fellow actor backstage at a drama set, and during the argument, the actor fell down the stairs and became vegetative. There were no cameras, someone had to take the blame, and I, who had witnessed everything, was there, with tears. My adoptive mother approached me, begging me to take the blame for Song-ru. Song-ru knelt before me, banging her head on the ground and slapping her own face, apologizing to me. The family was heartbroken, so, I nodded, I took the blame, went to prison, and suffered greatly. At first, the Song family would visit me, tears of guilt or apology in their eyes, but gradually, the visits stopped. Once, during a prison event, the warden asked about our plans after release. I thought long and hard before writing down sincerely, after I'm released, I want to see my parents. A fellow inmate laughed at the simplicity of my wish. Your parents will definitely come to pick you up, how could you not see them? I just smiled and said nothing, but when I was actually released, no one came, only Mr. Song's assistant took me to the airport and handed me a large sum of money. He said nothing, but I understood everything. My parents didn't want me anymore. The Song family had abandoned me. I didn't take the money. It wasn't about being noble, I just didn't want to owe anything to the Song family anymore. The Song family had raised me for over 20 years, and I had served 5 years in prison for their daughter. We were even. I rented a place, wore out my shoes looking for a job that didn't mind my criminal record, but after just half a month, I was fired. After much questioning, the manager finally admitted hesitantly, "You've upset someone you shouldn't have." I was stunned and speechless. Who else could it be but the Song family? That day, I walked the streets with my bag in the drizzling, cool rain, my face and body wet with the drizzle. As I passed by the central square, Song-ru's live broadcast was playing on the big screen. I stopped and looked up. On the award stage, she was radiantly beautiful, joyously showcasing her glamour. The camera panned to Mr. and Mrs. Song, their eyes brimming with tears as they looked at her. It was as if they were gazing at a rare treasure, their eyes filled with love. For some reason, I suddenly remembered the first visit in prison, when my adoptive mother, seeing how gaunt I had become, tearfully promised me, "After you are released from prison, Mom will take care of you for the rest of your life. Mom loves you." But when I saw her for the last time 2 years ago, all that was left in her expression was a faint sense of guilt. She said, "Tang-yin, Ru is getting engaged to He Wenjin. She really likes him. After you get out of prison, could you leave this place to avoid the He family discovering the past?" He Wenjin, the crown prince of the He family. There are TVs in prison, and occasionally I hear about the deep love between Song-ru and He Wenjin. Everyone says that He Wenjin, a well-known playboy in the circle, settled down for Song-ru. He stepped into the entertainment industry, which he once scorned, to pave the way for her, connect her with resources, and personally present her with awards. I sometimes envy Song-ru, envy her for having loving parents and a devoted boyfriend. In just over 20 years, she has reaped both career and love. Not like me, no parents, no career, no lover, also, no one to love. As for marrying He Wenjin, that was an accident. After being fired, I returned to my hometown and worked as a waitress in a restaurant. It was busy. I was serving beer to a customer when a drunk man, handsy and rude, made me frown and slap him. Enraged, he kicked me to the ground. Food and beer spilled all over me. It burned. The man, still not pacified and cursing, was about to strike again, but suddenly he fell silent. I opened my eyes to meet his bright, starry eyes. He Wenjin gave a lazy, insincere smile. "Song Tang-yin, so you really are here." I got up, shook off the food scraps from my clothes, nodded at him, and tried to walk away, but after just a few steps, I heard his voice from behind, "Seeing you so miserable, how about marrying me?" I turned around in astonishment. "Have you finally gone mad? Serious?" He Wenjin eyed me, his gaze dark and emotionless, but his words were earnest. "To tell you the truth, your sister dumped me, and I'm in a foul mood, and you've been pushed to this point by the Song family. We might as well be called a league of victims." The street lamp flickered twice and then went out. I couldn't see his face clearly, only heard him scoff, the tip of his cigarette glowing red. "Since you have nothing now, marrying me isn't a loss for you. What's there to fear?" I thought about it, didn't say a word. He just quietly waited for me, until a cool breeze blew, making me shiver instinctively. He Wenjin took off his high-end custom coat and draped it over my shoulders. In an instant, all I could smell was the faint scent of his tobacco. I said, "Okay." When the news of our marriage spread, everyone was shocked. They all said that He Wenjin married me just to spite Song-ru. At the wedding, when He Wenjin said he was willing, I noticed that Song-Ru was crying under the stage, losing her composure as she left the scene. I glanced at the man, but he just smiled and didn't even look her way. It was as if he had never loved, as if he truly didn't care. After the wedding, He Wenjin treated me very well. He arranged a secretarial job for me so that we were together all the time. When I asked him why, he just laughed it off lightly. I can't trust leaving a beautiful woman like you at home alone, afraid that some thief might steal you away. If that happened, wouldn't I be at a great loss? I chided him for not being serious, and I couldn't be bothered to argue with him. During the years I was in prison, I suffered a lot, and my body couldn't withstand any more hardships. A common cold or cough that might be minor to others could turn into a severe illness for me. He Wenjin hired renowned doctors to treat me, and I got somewhat better. By my sickbed, he held my hand, earnest and devout. Song Tangin, I bought you, your life is mine, you can't die before me. Childish words, but seeing the faint bitterness in his eyes, I ultimately nodded. I didn't understand why he was hurt, but I had long since learned not to ask, not to disturb. All right. Until death do us part. But in the end, the one who didn't keep the promise wasn't me, it was He Wenjin. Madam He passed away at 3 in the morning yesterday due to a major car accident, and efforts to save him were unsuccessful. Please accept our condolences. Pushing open the morgue door, He's parents were already crying inconsolably. Looking at He Wenjin's pale, lifeless face, I thought to myself, heaven favored him, giving him an enviable family background, looks, and capabilities. But why did it stingily grant him only 34 years? What a pity, what a pity. I personally handled He Wenjin's funeral. Throughout the 5 years of our marriage, many people never had high hopes for our union. Song-Ru, out of love turned bitter, was always waiting to see my downfall. Yet, no one expected that He Wenjin would leave all his assets and shares to me. The He family had no objections. Only, when they left, their backs were hunched. No longer possessing their former vitality. A week later, Chen, He Wenjin's lawyer, brought me the inheritance transfer documents, and as he was leaving, he handed me a voice recorder. This was Mr. He's belonging. It has been repaired, and I think you might need it. Song Tangin. In the voice recorder, the man's voice was clear yet husky, tinged with a bit of static, making it raspier. I didn't marry you because I was trying to spite Song-Ru. I married you because I liked you. I was stunned for a moment, yet my heart remained calm, as if I had anticipated this. He Wenjin chuckled softly. Perhaps you've forgotten, but we've met before. Back then, you were the untouchable heroine of the school, extremely intelligent, the teacher's favorite, and my mentor would always talk about you. Every time he finished chatting with your teacher, he would come to me, puffed up with anger, and say, He Wenjin, I'm annoyed with you now, stay away from me. He imitated his mentor's tone, sounding especially endearing. I chuckled subconsciously, but the next moment, I slowly reined it in. He Wenjin continued, I used to dislike you, yet I couldn't help but keep my eyes on you. It's like I had a bit of a masochistic streak, haha, but then, you ended up in jail for what they called intentional injury. I didn't believe it, I had to investigate it myself, but unfortunately, the Song family had cleaned up all the evidence so thoroughly, so, I turned my attention to Song-Ru. It turns out, the love story between He Wenjin and Song-Ru, which everyone talked about, was merely an excuse he used to uncover the truth behind my imprisonment. What He Wenjin didn't expect was that Song-Ru was tight-lipped, but eventually, he still found some traces. I suddenly remember, before we got married, He Wenjin once asked me excitedly, Ian, do you want revenge? No, I shook my head, it's all settled. Years later, I finally understand, that day he must have discovered the truth. He sought the truth for me, and for me, he kept that truth hidden. It turns out, it was all because of me. The emotions in my eyes violently trembled, my whole body couldn't stop shaking, and tears fell drop by drop. 07, but speaking of which, my acting must have been very, very good, so I deceived everyone, including you. Do you know how adorable your expression and eyes were when I asked you to marry me? Never mind. I've spoken too much again. Actually, I've always wanted to ask you. He Wenjin coughed, his usual pride replaced by a rare shyness of a young man. Song Tangin, can I, perhaps, also have a moment to like me? In this lifetime, I might not hear it, but in the next life, when I come to find you, you can tell me then. With the screeching of a sudden break and the noisy screams of the crowd, I clearly heard his last words. He said, Song Tangin, I really, really, really like you a lot. His tone even carried a hint of laughter. The suppressed emotion suddenly collapsed at that moment. In the empty living room, there were lilies that He Wenjin had brought home a few days ago still on the table. I've always liked lilies. He presented them to me as if offering a treasure. Ian, do they smell nice? I picked them out one by one just for you. Ian, from now on, I'll take care of replacing the flowers at home. At that time, the subtle laughter in his eyes, like gentle starlight, how could I say no? But the one who made the promise, lied. He left first, and took away the last vitality of the lilies. The warm sun shone through the floor-to-ceiling windows onto my shoulder. I reached out to touch it, but it only felt cold. To this day, I finally glimpsed the vast and secret love that He Wenjin hid beneath the ice. But, it seems too late. 08, Lawyer Chen met Mrs. He again a week later. He came to pick up the inheritance transfer document. He had followed He Wenjin for many years and had seen Mrs. He many times. In his memory, Mrs. He was always dignified, gently smiling like a jade Buddha on a pedestal, coolly observing the world's tumult, neither happy, nor angry, nor moved. Even when she learned of He Wenjin's death, she was momentarily stunned, yet her eyes remained dry. He Wenjin had been so kind to her, yet all he received from her was a single tear. Attorney Chen had once felt that He Wenjin deserved better, but this time, as soon as he entered the living room, he saw Mrs. He holding several bunches of wilted lilies, her complexion paler than the falling snow. Upon seeing him, she didn't even offer a courtesy smile, but stated coldly, Attorney Chen, donate his assets to the orphanage. I don't want them. There was no room for discussion. As he was leaving, Attorney Chen couldn't help but turn back and ask, Madam, did you ever love Mr. He, Mrs. He just smiled, but did not answer. Years later, Mrs. He became a philanthropist widely covered by the media, having supported countless orphans. When he saw her again, it was at her bedside. She was only 45 years old, yet her hair was completely white. At that moment, she looked out the window as if she saw someone, her face showing a hint of girlish naivety, and she said, I always have. Ian, please save your sister. She's still so young, she shouldn't be going to jail. Sister, I really know I was wrong. I didn't mean it. I don't want to go to jail. I'm a big star. Going to jail would ruin my life. When I woke up from the darkness, what I heard were loud cries. My head was throbbing as I slowly opened my eyes to see everything clearly. Song-ru was kneeling on the ground, crying her heart out. Song's father was holding her, comforting her with tenderness, and Song's mother, gripping my hand tightly, her face covered in tears, her voice choked but very serious. Ian, would you go to jail for your sister? I silently looked at her, as if encouraging her. Song's mother gritted her teeth and said, Ian, there were no cameras at the scene, only you and Aru were present, and the paparazzi only captured a silhouette that can't be identified. Just admit that you accidentally pushed He Xiaoxiao. The police won't find out anything, don't worry, once you're in prison. Mom will make sure everything is taken care of and you won't suffer. After you're released, the Song family will take care of you for life. She had said the same thing in my previous life, but that promise expired after just 1 year. After the guarantee expired, I was kicked out of a single room and, because of my looks, I suffered bullying and retaliation, beatings, insults, even poisoning. It was unbearable, but no one saw me, until I was hospitalized due to nitrite poisoning from the food. Song's mother came to my bedside. That day, she looked down at me with an impatient expression. After all, it's a prison, not a resort. It's inevitable to suffer. Tang Yin, don't be so delicate. Aru is going abroad for a business trip soon. I'm worried and probably won't have time to visit you in the future. After that, I never saw her again. Seeing Song's mother's tearful face now, I believed her words were sincere at the moment, but sincerity can change. My feelings of guilt and self-reproach eventually turned into a deeper fear as time passed. I gently pulled away from Mrs. Song's grasp and said, No, I can't do this. Mrs. Song was taken aback, probably not expecting me, who she thought was as docile as a lamb, to refuse her. But when I spoke again, I was serious and resolute. Mom, I appreciate that you raised me for 20 years, but I don't want to sacrifice my own life because of that. Call me selfish or an ingrate if you will. But I refuse to take the blame for her. This life, reborn, I am not here to repeat the same mistakes. In my previous life, He Wenjin saved me. This time, I am going to save myself, and then, I will walk cleanly and dignifiedly to He Wenjin's side. My refusal enraged Father Song, who scolded me for being ungrateful. having enjoyed the benefits of the Song family for so many years yet unwilling to give anything in return. Mrs. Song and Song-ru cried bitterly. Seeing that neither soft nor hard tactics worked on me, they worried I might flee, so they locked me in a room. Only my brother, Song Chunri, remained silent throughout. Just like in my previous life, Mrs. Song took away my phone, not knowing that I had a spare. I turned on the spare phone. Yesterday's news that He Xiaoxiao was seriously injured and had become comatose was trending online. There were few clues. Only a paparazzi had captured a blurry photo of a figure from behind, and mentioned. Song-ru and her sister were alone with He Xiaoxiao for a while. The police were probably already on their way. As I flipped through the spare phone, I subconsciously dialed a number. Seeing the familiar digits, I hesitated but ultimately did not make the call. Somehow, I felt afraid that the person on the other end of the phone wouldn't be the one I knew, and more terrified that once I woke from this dream, I might never see him again. In my past life, after He Wenjin died, I regularly paid his phone bill. In the quiet of the night, I would text him about everyday things or just to vent. I would always receive a reply, "Ian, I'm here." It was his automated response, set up before his death. How could someone be so cruel, cruelly holding on to my heart, making me unable to forget him for 10, 20, 30 years? I got up and opened the curtains. The warm sun shone through the window, bringing a hint of coolness. I saw the police outside the door. And the secretive glance from Father Song. With trembling hands, I finally sent out a message. "He Wenjin, won't you come and save me?" Mrs. Song initially tried to stop me from facing the police, hoping to solidify the evidence against me, but I forcefully knocked on the door. Facing the police's questions, I ignored Mrs. Song's pleading looks and responded to each one. In my previous life, I was convicted because I confessed to the crime and even erased evidence of my alibi, but this time, I won't be so foolish. The supposed favor of the past 20-odd years had already been exhausted in my previous life. Not holding hatred is already my limit, and compared to my calm composure, Song-ru appeared even more panicked and guilty. Right and wrong are clear at a glance. When Song-ru was taken away, Song's mother cried hysterically, and Song's father, with a gloomy face, occasionally glanced at me with the eyes of someone who had just lost a daughter, wishing he could tear me to pieces. They both followed Song-ru as she left. I stood quietly, watching silently. Then, Song Chunri came to my side and said in a deep voice, "The Song family can't shelter you anymore. Ian, you should leave this place." I looked up at him, pausing for a second as my eyes met his reddened ones. "Don't you blame me?" Song Chunri paused, not answering directly but instead gazing distantly towards the direction of the police car. His voice was as light as a breeze. "Ian, you are also my sister." He had said the same thing in a past life. He had advised me not to take the blame. I asked him why, and he looked down at me, his gaze as soft as wind and rain, tender and pitying. "Because you are my sister, too, yet." I had ignored his advice before, but this time, I decided to listen to him. Song's mother and father probably hated me to the bone now. Staying would only add to the troubles. I said earnestly, "Brother, take care of yourself." Song Chunri slightly curved his lips, his voice raspy. "Ian, live well for yourself." I packed my belongings and left the Song house. Looking ahead, the wind blew, swirling fallen leaves around. At this moment, the sunlight fell on me, warm and comforting. Suddenly, a figure rushed in front of me, his voice frantic. "Song Tangyin, you're okay, right?" I was startled for a moment. Looking up, the man was wearing a black shirt, his frame lean and tall, his eyes deep. He stood drowned in the morning sun, appearing as though he was standing in the light, his handsome face lazy and nonchalant. But at this moment, his face was slightly pale, and he looked at me anxiously, only relaxing when he saw I was unharmed. His gaze lingered on my suitcase for 2 seconds before he spoke again, hesitating. "Song Tangyin, did you run away from home?" It was He Wenjin, to be precise. It was a much younger He Wenjin. Memories of the past quickly flashed. To be precise, it was a much younger He Wenjin. Memories of the past quickly flashed through my mind. There were moments of him looking at me tenderly, him yawning lazily, him holding my hand as we stepped into marriage, all culminating in the evening we first met. He seemed relaxed but was actually tightly clenching his hand. He asked me, "Song Tangyin, would you marry me?" At this moment, my heart thudded rapidly, and I couldn't bear to take my eyes off him, until he widened his eyes in panic, exclaiming, "Song Tangyin, why are you crying? Who has hurt you?" Was I crying? Why would I be crying? Seeing him again, I should have been happy, but the emotions suppressed in my heart from a past life all turned into tears, streaming from my heart. I couldn't stop the tears, I cried. And Wenjin just quietly stayed with me, after a long while. He pulled me into his embrace, his voice low and soft, with a hint of indulgent helplessness, as if cajoling a beloved child. He said, "Ian, don't cry, who has bullied you? Shall I avenge you?" "No." I clutched at his sleeve and shook my head. "No revenge, in this life. I just want to be together with you properly. I don't want anything else." I followed Wenjin back to his apartment. It was cold and empty, that was his style. In my previous life, after Wenjin had passed away, I lived here for a long time. It was a way of remembering, and perhaps reminiscing. It's hard to explain. I was already familiar with the layout here, but I didn't notice that as I confidently walked into the depths, turned a corner, pushed open a door, and entered the bathroom. Wenjin's gaze darkened for a moment, looking at my reflection in the mirror, my eyes red and swollen, my appearance disheveled. I sighed softly. Feeling somewhat embarrassed, I had resolved to face Wenjin with dignity. Yet every encounter, I ended up looking so wretched, but it didn't matter. Wenjin loved me so much, he wouldn't disdain me, never. That was the most certain and sure thing in my life. Stepping out of the bathroom, Wenjin was leaning against the door waiting for me. He asked me, "Why are you crying?" I candidly recounted everything that had happened just before. There was nothing to hide between us. After listening, Wenjin was momentarily stunned. "So, the Song family wants you to take the blame?" I nodded, but I refused. "This matter won't end so simply. Although Xiaoxiao is severely injured and hasn't woken up, and there's no solid evidence, we can only wait for her to wake up to take the blame. Even though Song Ru is now considered a major suspect by the police, you are not without suspicion." As he spoke, his expression grew darker. I suddenly spoke up to interrupt him. "Wenjin, I'm a bit hungry." His gaze paused, then landed on me. Seeing my clear eyes without a hint of nervousness, he sighed helplessly. "I'll cook." I nodded. In my previous life, I had a severe stomach condition, so Wenjin specially learned to cook medicinal meals and cooked daily himself. He was very skilled. I had once thought he was born with cooking skills, but now, seeing the lumped noodles he served, I suddenly realized that Wenjin, a privileged young master, had always been served by others. How could he have known how to cook from the start? He learned for me. It was always for me. I picked up the chopsticks and took a bite, quite salty, but Wenjin looked at me expectantly. "Is it good?" His eyes twinkled with tiny stars, so beautiful, just like the man in my memories who smiled and asked if I liked him. I lowered my head, holding back the sour emotions, and nodded vigorously. "It's delicious. And, I really like it." The last bowl of noodles ended up in the trash can, because I cried. Wenjin thought it was because they were too hard to eat. He picked up the chopsticks and took a bite. Then, the next second, it went into the trash can. He frowned, clearly dissatisfied. "I want to cry too. It's so awful." "Very cute." It made me laugh out loud, dispersing the gloom between my brows. I encouraged, "It's okay, your cooking will definitely be delicious in the future." "Why?" I smiled and said, "Because I will be your only diner in the future." The man's eyes twinkled, his gaze thoughtful and inscrutable. He said in a deep voice, "Song Tangyin, what will you be to me in the future?" I was momentarily stunned. Looking up at him, I met his dark, confident, and certain eyes. He had guessed it, of course. He was always so clever. "Perhaps." I paused for a moment before slowly saying, "A lover, someone in love." I thought Wenjin might be taken aback or might frown and press further, but instead, he relaxed his expression, his eyes slightly crinkling and his lips curving up, shedding his casual indifference, appearing utterly sincere. He said, "That's good then, that's good then." Seeing the mole by his eye tremble with his smile, I suddenly wanted to taste what it was like. Thinking it, I did it. I lifted my foot and kissed him. Under his astonished gaze, I grinned. "Wenjin, I really like you. I forgot to tell you in my last life. This life, I'll tell you. I like you. I've always really liked you." Before going to sleep, Wenjin tucked me in. "If you get scared, call me, and I'll come right over." Before he left, he also placed the amulet he wore around his neck into my palm. I knew this. Wenjin was frail as a child, and his mother got this amulet for him, to protect him as he grew up. Now, he was using it to ensure my safety. Clutching the jade pendant, my heartbeat was erratic, and my cheeks were burning hot. Only when Wenjin slowly walked out and closed the door did I realize my face felt a bit sore from smiling. my heart felt swollen too. He Wenjin was always like this, seeming like a playboy who never took anything seriously, yet he was actually the most meticulous and gentle person. And that night, I couldn't sleep until the middle of the night. A bit excited and a bit afraid, I glanced at the phone by my pillow. Thought for a moment, wondering if He Wenjin had already fallen asleep. I was afraid to disturb him with a call, maybe just send a text instead. Are you asleep? Just as I sent it, feeling it was a bit redundant and about to retract it, suddenly, there were footsteps at the door, then, the sound of the door opening. When I opened my eyes again, He Wenjin was already standing by my window bed. The moonlight through the window fell on He Wenjin's shoulders. Softening his sharp features into a gentle warmth, he leaned down and gently asked, "Ah-in, what's wrong?" Less than a minute after sending the message, he was already here. He was truly following through on his words. He said he would come, no matter how late. He always comes when I need him. Perhaps, like me, he too found no sleep last night, all because he was afraid I might truly need him. Thinking of this, my heart clenched tightly. It hurt and felt suffocating. I ended up staying at He Wenjin's house for half a month. The most interesting part was waiting for He Wenjin to come home. He would be in the kitchen, showcasing his culinary skills, while I leaned against the doorway, quietly watching him. Sometimes, I'd lend him a hand, under the warm yellow light, with his hair slicked back. His handsome yet somewhat immature face appeared softer, enveloped in a gentle aura. At this time, he hadn't yet graduated from university. Compared to the resolute and decisive CEO he in my previous life, he now seemed more naive and tender. This was a time I had never been part of, never known. Occasionally, he would look up at me, his lips curving into a gentle smile. The clear love in his eyes was impossible to hide. He really liked me a lot. In that moment, I realized that in the times I was unaware, He Wenjin truly cared deeply for me. My heart tightened suddenly, emotions flooding through me and culminating in a long, deep sigh. He Wenjin's cooking skills improved day by day. The Song family could no longer contain themselves. I had thought that the Song family wouldn't just let Song Ru admit guilt and go to prison, but I didn't expect that they would bribe He Xiaoxiao's agent to accuse me as the real instigator. Such shamelessness, such despicableness. In front of the cameras, Song's mother revealed the truth about mine and Song Ru's origins. Tears streaming down her face, she cried. I never imagined Ain would intentionally hurt someone. She has always been such a good girl, but now to avoid punishment, she even framed her own sister. Although Aru is my own daughter, she hasn't enjoyed many blessings in life. Now she's even being falsely accused and sent to prison. It really breaks my heart. Songru nestled in her arms, clumsily wiping away her tears while her own streamed down her cheeks. Mom, don't be sad. My sister must have been confused when she made the mistake. I'm willing to take her place if it means she can take care of you. The mother and daughter, wailing pitifully in front of the media, looked extremely sorrowful. People who make mistakes should take responsibility. You shouldn't have to suffer for what isn't your fault. Finally, Song's father, looking stern and righteous in front of the cameras, declared, Song Tangin, the Song family has raised you for so many years. We hope you will come forward and atone for your wrongdoing. Once the video was released, the internet erupted with condemnation against me. Such an ungrateful person. She enjoyed the good life of a fake heiress and now lets the Song family's own daughter take the blame. Is she even human? Song Tangin, you vile woman, dare to do but not to own up. Utterly disgusting. Indeed, the Song family treated you too well, and you repay kindness with enmity. Truly despicable. The criticism continued. My private account was exposed. And I received a flood of messages every day. Even former classmates called to inquire about my situation. Those who cared, I occasionally replied. Those who wanted me to confess, I simply blocked. Despite the ongoing external turmoil, I did nothing. No matter how much the Song family schemed or agitated, as long as the police did not summon me, I am innocent. Why should I complicate things and fall into a trap of self-justification? That day, He Wenjin received a message and rushed home. Immediately saying, I can help you, I smiled and replied, no need, I'll handle it myself. But I stopped mid-sentence. For some reason, I suddenly remembered something that happened in my past life, a fierce argument. Though it was called fierce, it was actually just because He Wenjin treated me too well, which made many jealous. Rumors about me going to jail were spread behind my back, and the internet was filled with curses. In the end, it was all about me not being worthy of He Wenjin. He Wenjin wanted to help me clear up the rumors. He wanted to attend the press conference with me and take legal action against the gossipers. but I felt it was unnecessary. I had been to prison before, and although I was innocent, I didn't want He Wenjin to also be subjected to criticism because of me. This angered He Wenjin. He coldly questioned me, asking if I truly cared about him, if I saw him as my husband, but I felt that a cold treatment was better. Thinking he was just being unreasonable and making a fuss, that day, the living room was dark, lit only by the dying light of the sunset. After a long silence, he scoffed and softly said, "You walk through life with integrity, and I won't allow others to point fingers at you. Do you understand, Song Tangyin?" I remained silent, refusing to respond. As I was leaving, I looked back and could see his solitary figure. I felt some regret then. I thought, maybe I should have just agreed with him. It was just a small matter, after all, but I never imagined that would be our last encounter. After his death, I kept asking myself, why didn't I accompany him? Why didn't I tell him my feelings? The bouquets of lilies, his meticulous care, his focused gaze. Was I really unaware of his love? I clearly knew, but I was a bastard who took advantage of his love. I was sure He Wenjin would stay with me till the end, recklessly indulging in his love, yet I never tried to soothe his anxious heart. Until he died, then I understood love, but for the love realized too late. Nothing is more cruel than having no chance to express it, no chance to get closer, before losing it all forever. No more chances. Returning to this life is a chance given by heaven to make amends. All the dignity of love, the shyness, the gradual progression. I can't bother with it, nor can I learn it. I just want to be with him. I just want, still want. So I hugged He Wenjin tightly, then kissed him on the lips. Between our locked lips, I gasped softly and said, "All right, you helped me. Here's a reward in advance." He Wenjin was taken aback for a moment, then more passionately pushed me down onto the couch. 2 hours later, I was too tired to get up, but I held on tightly to He Wenjin, refusing to let go, looking at him. He was clearly too tired to keep his eyes open, yet he still didn't want to close them. "I'm still a bit scared that this is all a dream." He leaned over and gently kissed my cheek and forehead. "I'm here, Ian, go to sleep. I'll always be here." I murmured an and could no longer hold back. Plunging into darkness, I suddenly woke up in a pitch-black room, dressed in an indigo nightgown, lying in a bedroom with black and white decor. There was a cup of cold water on the nightstand. Next to it a white pill. I looked around. The room was empty and cold, without that familiar person. The pain suddenly shot through me. Memories flooded my mind, scene by scene, finally freezing on that electrifying husky voice. "Ian, I really like you." So, it was a dream. I suddenly realized. It was truly a beautiful dream. I clutched my chest tightly, my hands and feet ice cold, as if ensnared in a net. Slowly being deprived of my breath, tears dripping down. "Ian, what's wrong?" Someone suddenly pushed open the door and came over to me, looking at me anxiously, with tear-blurred eyes. I raised my hand to wipe away the tears, finally seeing the man clearly. "Ian, it's okay. I just went out to handle some matters with the Song family. I found the agent bribed by the Song family, and also the janitor who happened to pass by that day. He saw Songru pushing He Xiaoxia down. Songru has been convicted, and I am suing the Song family for framing you, Ian." "No one will frame you anymore." The man gently patted my back while telling me everything that had happened while I was asleep. I looked up at him, leaning gently into his embrace, listening to the clear, strong heartbeat in his chest. I finally smiled. "It's okay, I missed you," I softly told him. "He Wenjin, have I ever told you? I really like you a lot." The man chuckled and held me tightly in his arms. He said, "I like Ian too." After many years, people in love finally confessed their love to each other. Mountains and seas, time and space, none could hinder the reunion of those in love. He Wenjin's side story. I am reborn. After my rebirth, the first thing I did was go to the Song family, yet I found the Song family still harmonious. Song Tangyin was still the coldest, smartest goddess of the academy, not the seemingly gentle but inwardly deeply scarred Mrs. He of the past life. Ian had no sense of security. Prison was too harsh. She was envied and hated, often tormented by other prisoners in the middle of the night. Even after being released, the slightest noise would wake her, and then, she couldn't sleep again, sitting up all night. Yet even so, she could perform her duties flawlessly by day. My Ian, fragile as snow yet resilient as pine, it seems a single ray of light could melt her, but in fact, she is indestructible. I love her, and I admire her. At the school's freshman ceremony, Song Tangyin, as the student council president, went up to the podium to speak. I sat in the audience, looking at her from a distance. The girl wore a uniform, her hair in a ponytail, revealing a beautiful yet youthful face. She effortlessly radiated her beauty and showcased her knowledge, captivating many not just with her looks but also her words. At that moment, Ain was the bright, innocent top student from his memories. Standing on the podium, the wind brushed her hair and the sunlight seemed to favor her, casting a soft golden glow upon her. Suddenly, I wished that time could stand still right at this moment. I hoped that his Ain would never have to endure any hardships, always remain innocent, where smiles are just smiles, and sorrows are just sorrows, unaffected by rumors, untouched by mockery. How wonderful that would be. I had already known that Song-Ru would face trouble, so I had installed a surveillance camera in that secluded corridor. I was about to release the footage when I received a distress message from Song Tangyin. In that instant, I knew Ain was back. I wanted to know her stance this time, how she would handle the Song family affairs. But this time, she refused to take the blame. She left the Song family. I saw her quietly dragging her luggage, walking alone on the deserted plane tree-lined boulevard. When she saw me, she blossomed into a smile. It made me feel, yes, the sunlight was so warm that day. I took her home, pretending to be oblivious to everything. After much effort, I made a bowl of colorless noodles. Watching her stunned expression, gradually, I guided her to realize my love for her. Seeing her heart flutter for me, I should have been overjoyed, but seeing her tears at that moment, I felt a pang of heartache. Never mind, I thought, loving her is enough. Whether she loves me back or not, what does it really matter? But in the end, she threw herself into my arms, clinging tightly to me.